Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany. And I would like to welcome you to a brand new look of the world of gaming. Yes, we have a new logo, we have a new intro, we have a new overlay, we have a new thumbnail, and we have new jingles. So yeah, we're gonna have new jingles later in the show. And I want to say a big thank you and start the show with a big thank you to Ben Kenobi. Everyone on Twitter probably knows him. He's the guy who designs all these awesome Xbox logos and other game logos, banners and stuff. And he came to me and said, "Hey man, I'm gonna design you a new World of Gaming logo." And I took this as an inspiration here to give the show a brand new look, and I do hope you guys like it. Let us know in the chat, how do you like the new look, the new logo and everything. But while you do that, I want to welcome, of course, my wonderful and today very smart looking co-host, Wandering Dutch. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm just looking forward to getting into the show. It's I think it feels like it's been too long. I don't know. It's just one of them weeks.
Yeah,
it's been a long week.
It's been a long week. It's been a long week, and we've got a lot of topics to discuss. So it's gonna be awesome, and it's gonna be especially awesome because we have an amazing guest here today. He's gonna make I think your third appearance now on the podcast.
I have a bad memory. It's don't ask me, but I know at least one other time. Possibly twice. I'm not sure.
At least once, probably twice. So it's the second or third, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's awesome that you're here, man. It's been way too long since we've been on a podcast together. Mav, welcome to the show.
Dude, thanks for inviting me to the show. Good timing. We got some lots of cool news today, and lots of stuff to talk about. It's been a while since I've been on a show with Dutch also, because last time I was on your show, I don't think Dutch was a part of the panel yet. Right, so
true.
And I've seen Dutch has gone through stages lately. He's been ZZ Dutch, as I've been calling him, with his shades, and now he's Dapper Dutch. So I like all these iterations of Dutch, man. It's but I'm looking forward to having a great time on this show, man. And I have not been able to be on Xbox Factor podcast on Tuesdays for a while because of work.
Yeah, same.
So I've been missing you, Boxenberger. So it means a lot to be able to be here today. So let's have some fun.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have some fun because like you said, we have a lot to talk about. But let me briefly welcome, of course, everyone who's already in chat. I see that the chat is filling up with a lot of familiar names, a couple of new ones that are in there too. Welcome to the show. And of course, welcome to everyone who listens after the fact on the podcast services around the globe, on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, wherever you're listening. Guys, did you know I got from Apple Podcast another email informing me how the podcast is performing, and we are now not the third but the second highest rated entertainment podcast on iTunes in Sweden.
Wow!
Shout out to you guys. It is really awesome.
My Nordic brethren are just joining again. This is the thing. All these northern territories.
right. So good stuff here. Good stuff. But yeah, guys, we have a lot to talk about. Today, we are gonna talk, of course, about God of War Ragnarok, and the reviews are out. And we stay on PlayStation for a bit today because we will talk about the PlayStation earning report or the Sony earning report and the PSVR2 announcement. We will talk about the Activision Blizzard deal, like basically every week. But this time not about the CMA, but we talk about the EU and some infos we got there. Then we will talk about the big Phil Spencer interview, and he has teased a couple of things like Fable, like new hardware, and a couple of games. So it's gonna be interesting. We will talk about Modern Warfare, EA and Marvel, Jedi Survivor, and a lot more. But first, it's time to talk about the games of the week. All right, that was the first of 3 new jingles we got here. So I would appreciate some feedback here. I just realized it kind of sounds really loud. I might have to dial the volume a little bit down, but other than that, let me know your thoughts about the
Taking
new jingles.
I thought I broke my
You-
glass or something here for a second. I was like, "Whoa!"
No, it's all part of the thing. Guys, what have you been playing? What are your games of the week? Let's start with our guest, Mav.
Well, what I've been playing most this week is Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer, and no surprise there. But yeah, I've been having a blast. We had a day and a half of a lot of issues with crashes right after launch.
No.
But they quickly got that patched out, and it's been a smooth ride ever since then. So been having fun. There was a good 3 or 4 days where I didn't really get to play that much, man. It just got busy and but yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I when I've been playing, it's either Call of Duty or NBA 2K. God, I sound like a casual gamer right now. What's going on?
You do. Hey, but we haven't had a casual gamer on this show for a long time. So
what's up, man? I haven't even played Requiem yet. What's happening to me? My most anticipated games have still yet to release this year. Starfield was going to be that one, but for me, December has my biggest releases because Midnight Suns and Need for Speed Unbound. I'm actually really excited for both of those games. So
I thought you were going to say Callisto Protocol, but yeah.
Callisto. I'm not as big into the horror games. Like I dabbled with Dead Space. I never got sucked into Dead Space. It just didn't ever really click with me. So I am going to try Callisto at some point, but it's not one that I want to shell out all the money for day one. You know what I mean? So I'll probably wait on that and get it a little bit later. But definitely Midnight Suns is my kind of game, and I'm really excited for that. And Need for Speed, I'm just itching for that franchise to come back in a big way. So I have a lot of high hopes on that. But other than that, man, just Call of Duty, NBA, Marvel Snap. Shout out to Marvel Snap. Oh my gosh. I did not anticipate getting into a mobile game like that. But it's really good, man. The card art and stuff on that game is absolutely awesome. And I mean, I've been playing little things here and there, you know what I mean? But those are the main things that got my heart right now.
Hey, good games, good choices. Guys, let us know in chat, what are you playing right now? And big shout out to Sith Lord for the first super chat. He's been a member actually for 4 months now. And he writes in and says, "Hello boys, are you more excited for Sonic or God of War?" And for me, it's God of War. Sorry, Sonic. How about you guys?
Silly question, really.
Sonic is this for you, okay? Math.
Shave my head and paint red across, and I'll be good.
Yeah.
For me, like God of War is just the 2018 never 100% clicked with me. I think this one, Ragnarok, has a lot better chance to really catch my attention and keep me engaged because of the amount of variety that I see in the game from all the trailers and stuff. So I want to play it. I don't know if I'm going to get it right away, but Sonic, I don't know if I'll be able to wait on, because this is like that Sonic game that's like, hey, are they ever going to go all out and try to make a really big news thing with Sonic? And they're finally trying to do it. I don't know if it's going to click, but my curiosity is too engaged with that game. Like, I gotta know what this big open world Sonic game is. You know what I mean? It's like Sonic's been around for how long now? Since the 90s, early 90s, right? Like
probably end 80s, actually.
Yeah, like whenever the Genesis came out, right? So whenever the Genesis launched or so, and so that character's been around. We've never seen a Sonic game like this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's just got my curiosity peaked a lot. I don't know if it's gonna be good or not, but I don't know. I gotta see it. I gotta play it.
Hey, I'm definitely interested in it. No doubt. Like you said, we all grew up with Sonic. So naturally, I'm excited. I'm just thinking about holding off until the Christmas break, because I'm thinking about playing this with my kids during the across the Christmas break. So maybe, but yeah, for me it's definitely God of War. But great question, Sith Lord. Let's see what are people playing in chat before we get to Dutch here. We see Jason Max. He says he's about to buy the Tomb Raider Anniversary Edition. Awesome stuff. That's a fantastic game. I loved it. Why So Serious is playing Metro Exodus. Also very good. Hopefully you're playing on the Series X because it looks phenomenal with ray tracing at 60 FPS. Sentinel is doing another playthrough of Mass Effect 3. You can never go wrong with that. And of course, some Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Bellantone is also playing Metro and Persona Royale. Then we have he says Pixel Slapper is playing his bongos on the GameCube again. I love it. Good stuff. And Doom Reaper is playing Darkside Detectives. Sweet. And Dave Ramos sends in a super chat and says, today's show is going to be so much fun. Smash that like button, folks. I'm excited for High on Life. Thank you so much for the support, man. And yeah, High on Life. That's gonna be an awesome game. It looks fantastic.
You think that game's gonna cause a lot of controversy when it comes out, like being in Game Pass, and all of a sudden parents aren't aware of what their kids are playing? They see this like kiddie-looking game, and all of a sudden they see some of the stuff. I don't personally care. I'm not against that or whatever. I'm just curious
me neither.
If there could be some kind of like uproar all of a sudden out of nowhere because of High on Life, because there was a little bit at the IGN show that they had with the sit down playthrough of that, and they did they showed the guys joking, and there's like a 30-year-old alien or whatever that got killed, but it looked like a kid or whatever. So people were spreading that around Twitter, like, "Oh, this is not okay."
I don't know.
Curious,
we've had kiddie-looking games before that were actually quite mature. I mean, South Park, obviously, but like even games like Psychonauts 2, they look like a kid game when they're really not. So I don't know. I don't know. We shall see. That's what have you been playing, man?
I hate to say it, I'm in the same ballpark as Mav here, and I'm Mr. Casual Gamer this week. The only thing I've had a chance to play, because obviously, and this is the good thing about casual games that we play, Call of Duty, etc., is you can jump on for a few rounds and jump off when you haven't got much time. Because I've been short on time this week and either tired or busy or somewhere in between, I've just jumped on Call of Duty for a few rounds on the weekend, of course, release weekend, played as much as we could. Physically could. So that is literally all I've been playing.
So many people play that game in my friends list, but I've never been into the Call of Duty multiplayer. I usually play the campaigns, but since these are like 5-6 hour experiences, I usually buy them on sale because I'm not paying full price for a 5-hour campaign and then put the game to rest. So
missions as well.
Yeah. So, but good stuff. I'm glad to see that Call of Duty is back to the popularity. Actually, a lot of people seem to really like it. So that's really cool to see. Let's see. We have Elvin here in chat. He plays Gunfire Reborn. That's awesome. Jay finished A Plague Tale. Man, that ending that hits hard. And Abnormal Status reminds me of something. He's playing Resident Evil Village DLC. I totally forgot that that's out. I need to get that. Good stuff. The chat is playing a lot of cool stuff. So for me, obviously, Season 3 in Age of Empires 4 started. Been putting, again, way too many hours into it. But I love it. The new maps are fantastic. Really, they are really good designed. And
I got a question for you, Boxburger. Real quick. Are you gonna abandon PC and just play on console later? Or are you gonna still play on PC when it launches?
That's a very good question. I will definitely give the controller a shot. And I'm just gonna see where I rank better on
Right.
PC or console. What I will definitely do is turn off crossplay, because I can absolutely not see how a controller can play against mouse and keyboard in this game. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a try. I think I have a little head start compared to the console control players, with having now almost 380 hours into the game already. So at least I know some of the basic strategies that you require for the game. But yeah, now on PC, New Civilizations are out. They are really fun to play. A lot of diversity in play styles with the new civs. And I gotta shout out the H4 community, because they have become really, really good. So I finished last season in gold rank 3 tier, and now I'm barely making it in gold 2 tier. They have become good, and I need to figure out a couple of better strategies, man. It's ridiculous how good they have become, and I want to shout them out because I love that about the game, that the community is always improving, and you can never rest on your laurels. It's so good. And I bought another game that has kept me actually busy, and I want to put some gameplay.
Other than that,
I play something other than that, and I bought Gotham Knights. I recorded a bit of gameplay from probably what is the first hour of the game after the little intro sequence. So no spoilers here. I was really hard debating whether to get it or not, because, like I said last week, I really do not like that the devs went for the 30 FPS. But on the other hand, I'm such a big Batman fan, and I just love that universe and that lore. And everyone who actually played it told me, dude, get it, because it is a lot of fun, and I can confirm it is real good fun.
This is one I forgot to mention to Boxenberger, and I was in the same boat as you.
Yeah. So have you played it already?
Yeah, no, I've been playing it. I even made a tweet. I was like, I'm never going to buy a $70 game at 30 frames per second ever, day one. But I didn't lie. I bought it day 2, and I got it for $62.99. So
yeah.
But I do love it too, man. It is holding it back from what it could be, I think, with the 60 frames, because especially when you play other games and then all of a sudden you come back to it. Once you play it for a long time, that 30 frames kind of melts away, and you kind of revert back to last generation, and you just forget all about it after a while. But when you play something else and you come back to it, it's like another having to get adjusted all over again. The catch is too, it's not even a stable 30 right now, but they are working on that. Besides that, though, I agree with you. The game is really good. I mean, there's a lot to love in it. Like, the characters are great, the story is great, the combat. Which some people don't like the combat. I absolutely love the combat in the game, and I love the abilities and everything. The city,
it's different. Great. It's different. The combat is different than in the Arkham games, but it's still a lot of fun. I agree absolutely.
But the best thing,
please continue.
Best thing, Boxenberger, what I see you messing with here now on the video just a second ago is photo mode in this game. It's incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. You can take some fantastic shots in this game, and if you're if you love like Batman and that world and the characters and stuff, you can have a field day with this game. There's just a lot to love.
It is. Well, what's your favorite character right now?
Robin.
Yeah,
really? I started with Robin. I main Robin. I did the knighthood with Robin already, so I got his traversal stuff unlocked.
Okay.
And, really enjoy the combat with him. The combat when you're doing these moves and stuff gives you this feeling of like you're kind of like a badass. You know what I mean? And that's the key thing in a game like this. It's like, wow, I did that. That was cool.
Yeah.
Holy crap, how did I do that? This looked awesome. And they had these like slow motion sequences where you're about to do the final takedown in a fight where you have like 20 guys, and it's just so satisfying, dude. And it's addicting gameplay. It's a
It
really
is.
addicting gameplay loop. So they did a great job with this game. I do think that it came in a little like under uh underbaked or so. I because with it not having the stable 30 frames and then having that other 4-player mode coming later lets me know that that probably wasn't quite finished yet. I think that mode would have probably been there at launch had the game been where they wanted it to be. But they needed to hit it before the end of before this holiday. Because if they got pushed back into early next year,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's just too much
The
stuff
game
there
wouldn't stand a
already. You know,
chance. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm glad
I
it came out when
agree.
it did, and it was good. It was good at polished enough to release, I think. And the
Yeah.
60 frames decisions and stuff like that. That was something that core core design choices early on, right?
Yeah.
And they can't really get around now. I see Shizno saying it's a stable frame rate. It is not stable. It is not a stable 30. Like anybody that plays this game can tell you, if you're in the open world and you get on that bat cycle or you're like traversing and you
Yeah.
rotate the camera away, you get frequent drops into the 20s for sure. But
And
it's
it's
not enough to kill the
unfortunately
game.
not even variable rate, refresh rate helps you here because
no.
that only kicks in after above 42 frames and not underneath. So it really doesn't help. The frame rate isn't good. There's no argument around that. It feels very last gen. But you know what? We've been playing 30 frames for how long? Generations, like decades. We've been playing 30 FPS, and no one in this community can tell me he didn't enjoy games on the Xbox One or the 360. During the 360 days, we played games with 25 frames per second. And I'm really not trying to defend the choice because we are not in the 360 generation anymore. We have a console that can support 60 easily, especially with visuals like this. So I'm not trying to defend it, but I'm saying you still can enjoy a game if it's 30 FPS, if it's good at its core. And like you said, the gameplay is really good. It's fun. The combat is fun. I like the RPG mechanics. They make literally no sense in the lore whatsoever, but they are really good. It's not like you have to grind for anything, or you just find a lot of stuff during the regular combats, and I'm really enjoying the story. Honestly, so far I'm probably like 10 hours or so, or maybe 12 hours into the game.
I was going to say the one, I think one of the reasons they probably didn't put off waiting to get that 60 on console and just roll it out as a patch peppies in the future would be down. I think I've been hearing there's a few games ready to push out of even February and early 23 into a later stage next year. Is the fact that 23 is absolutely rammed, and if you try to release a game like this with its performance issues out in 2023 with so many games, it's just going to get buried.
I'm wondering. Exactly. I don't even think we're ever going to get a 60 frames patch for this game unless there's like a mid-gen refresh type situation going on.
Something like that.
That's the thing. We've thankfully, and I say this in a positive way, we've heard that before, and then they've brought out a 60 frame patch.
That's true. I just question now, like thinking about this, like, and they worked on this game probably based on some of the technology and engine that Arkham games were built on, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a massively different game, but we still never got a 60 frames update or anything on those games. And that, out of everything, like you would think that would have been like a big priority, like franchise, because it's one of the most beloved franchises out there.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we never got that on these series.
Which is weird because they all have FPS boost.
So I just maybe there's something with the way their tech, the way that they're doing something with the engines and the way the world building that they just have trouble doing 60 frames. I don't know.
I agree. I need to briefly shout out our super generous friend Drawn TJ, who sends in an outstanding $50 super chat. Man, thank you so much for the support. And he says, "Hey guys, Boxenberger, I think you missed my super chat. I just checked, man. I can't find one. So maybe YouTube buried it. But if so, I'm super sorry. But it's not in the super chat list here. I'm really sorry." But he says, the following in his super chat. What do you guys think about Microsoft going to get Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal from Embracer after the deal? And are you excited for Test Drive Unlimited next year? Listen, let me start with Test Drive Unlimited first. Yeah, it looks really good. What about you, Mav? I know that's right up your alley. Test Drive Unlimited.
Test Drive Unlimited is one of the few games I actually tried to 1,000 gamer score. Right, and I just never really care about achievements or whatever, but I love that game so much on the 360. My wife absolutely loved it as well. I got really into that game, so I'm really looking forward to. I think it's Solaris is the name. It's a hard name to remember, but it's really looking forward to that. So he says, what do you guys think about Microsoft going to get Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal from Embracer?
We have that actually as a topic later, but we might just as well talk about this now.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do, but yeah, as far as Test Drive, 100% excited about that. My wife is as well. I'll say that. She really, really, really got into that Test Drive game, and not for the same reasons. Like she'd drive around, pretend like she's taking the kids to school, going to the grocery store. Like it's just like random stuff. She would like kind of live in like this like world where you're just driving around doing things in a different way. But it's awesome because it was like the first MMO racing game we got, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really cool. I absolutely loved it. And I've been waiting for this because this one's actually there's going to be casinos and all this other stuff. It's going to be pretty cool.
Man, your wife is actually in chat, and he says you should stop.
Yeah, she don't want me to call her out.
So we might just hand this over to Dutch. Test Drive Unlimited. You excited for it?
Actually, yeah. Solar. Is it Solar Drive? It's called. Is it Unlimited Solar Drive? Or is it am I thinking of a different one?
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. Super excited to see what they do. They've got an interesting world that I think few have tried to mirror. I think Horizon's the kind of closest one to what Test Drive originally did, which was that kind of more open world dynamic, building a garage of cars, building a collection and things like that. And this one looks like an absolute step up over that one. So I'm super hyped about that. Really looking forward to seeing what they can do for this one. I think if anyone, because again, we've seen so many try to mirror those kind of games before. Only Horizons come close. The Crew was okay, but the car feeling was pretty terrible. And it didn't.
I think this is really the game that established the phrasing car PG. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
With regards to the Embracer thing, again, if you want to get into that topic,
sure. I have it on the topic list anyway. So you know what, guys, we just move over to the news of the week, and then we start with exactly that topic. All right, that's the second of the 3 new jingles. And it is the opener for the discussion of the news topics of the week. We have so many. I'm just taking notes for the YouTube thing later when we started this topic. Embracer and Crystal is an interesting thing. Why is Tronty J bringing this up for everyone who didn't caught the news? So we've learned about from our community lover, Jason. God damn it, what's his name? Jason Schreier. Thank you. You know, the guy who blogs everyone, but he actually tweeted out a couple of things, and one thing, we get to the other stuff later, but one thing was that Playground is working with Eidos Montreal on Fable. So they are now basically a support studio for Fable, which is on the one side, great to see. On the other side, it's really interesting because we also have Crystal Dynamics helping on Perfect Dark. So those former Square Enix studios that are now part of Embracer both support Xbox and their studios now, and that's why the rumor is out there that this acquisition, which was super cheap for Embracer, like 200 something million for 3 studios, including all the IP like Tomb Raider, like Deus Ex, and all these IPs. They were a steal, and now the rumor is out there that, hey, what if this is just like a placeholder acquisition? Embracer got them in order to sell them a little later, maybe a little bit more expensive to Xbox once the ABK deal is through. So yeah, guys, what do you think about this? Let's start with our guest here. That I know you're itching to comment on this, but Mav, what do you think about this rumor?
It's an interesting thought, and this got brought up actually on Iron Lord's podcast a while back, and I happened to be on that show and Slow-Mo was there as well, and he had kind of put that out there into the world that maybe it's a thought that could be part of the reasoning for Embracer Group getting them, is to almost like flip them. You know what I mean? Because they got them on the cheap, right? They got them like so freaking cheap, and Square was just looking to offload them, right? And with everything going on with Crystal Dynamics and Perfect Dark, we had to just assumed that it was going to be a match made in heaven right there with Microsoft, and especially after we saw the price that they required from Embracer. It was like, wow, that's a steal. And not only that, but they got those IPs too, like Tomb Raider and stuff like that. And they're like, whoa, they got Tomb Raider and those studios for that? Like that's crazy, considering the other amounts we see out there on acquisitions, right? So it was very glaring at the time, and I think that's probably what started some of that conversation. And but now when you add Eidos Montreal on top of that, it's another layer, because it almost seems like Microsoft was already developing that relationship with those studios and putting things in place for a transition, right? And it's, who knows 100% if that's what's going on. It could just be the fact that when Embracer Group acquired them, they also came out and said that we will continue to look at do things like that with our studios as well. Have them be support studios or other things. And it's not entirely unique in the industry, right? Because Sega does it a lot. You know, like if you play an RTS game out there, a good chance it's either Relic that has helped with it, or Creative Assembly as well has helped with it, you know, which they've helped with Halo Wars and stuff like that as well. So there's a lot of intricacies with this where you could look at, it's just coincidence, or it's just usual type business. But they're both of those studios came from Square, and they're both working on major Xbox first party IP, right?
Yeah.
This is not like these are not like unimportant like projects. These are not like
they are probably two of the most high profiled games in development.
Two of the most requested games to come back for a long time. You got Perfect Dark and you got Fable, right? So you look at those two studios and attaching those two prominent developers who have AAA expertise for years, right? It just makes a lot of sense. So even if it wasn't a done deal right now, as far as I don't know, that'd be like a backdoor deal that I don't even think would be legal. I don't even know 100% how that would work, but I think there's an understanding.
I think this works on a gentleman agreement level.
Yes, exactly. I think there would be an understanding that, hey, that we got your studios tied up right now with those other projects. Embracer takes the hit on closing the other studio, right? I forget the name of that studio, but it was
it was the former Square Enix. It had Square Enix in the name,
I think, or something like that, right? So they take the hit for closing that studio. Then once all the deals done on Activision Blizzard, you know,
Yeah.
it would be really fall under the radar to have these two studios acquired. The question is, would the IP come along for the ride at that point, or would that be something that Embracer Group would hold on to?
That's a very interesting
So
thought.
I don't know. I don't know how that would work. So it's very interesting to see. But I would say that Embracer Group knows what they're doing business wise, and it just wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't a bet on investment for them. But you know, it could equally go the other way. Who knows, man? They could,
Who knows?
because they did seem excited about bringing those projects back. They talked about numerous projects they were looking to bring back, and Tomb Raider has already announced a new one. Then there was another major franchise that they talked about doing
Deus Ex, and actually, exactly, Jason Schreier also tweeted about that. He said that they canceled an unannounced new IP, and that they started to develop a new Deus Ex game, which is now very, very early, of course, in development. So yeah, but Dutch, what do you think about this rumor?
As one of the few people here who's technically part of the Embracer Group, through Grimfrost, which is, of course, I'm ambassador for that company. They are very much providing. So it's one of the routes they have is not only are the studios that they get in, such as Eidos Montreal and Square Enix, etc., going to be used strictly for IPs we know of, but also to work with some of the companies that are outside of the gaming space already in order to create new IPs using the gaming studios that they acquire. One of the first things that they said with regards to Grimfrost, was there's a number of Viking-themed games already within the Embracer Group, which may present an opportunity for Grimfrost working with them. And obviously, Grimfrost do all of the Viking stuff for Vikings, the TV show, Vikings Valhalla, all of that stuff, all of the weaponry and stuff within that. So the way they work as a company is more acquire and grow as opposed to acquire and sell. So they're not looking for a quick turnaround from these companies. They're looking to get them on stable footing, get them to where they need to be, and then grow and make a profit at them is not just a quick profit. And all of these companies were bought on the premise of stability for their staff and kind of going forward, not having to worry about financial aspects, which is one of the key things that the founder has kind of brought, and specifically with Grimfrost, the financial aspect and the beneficial for them was that they had dreams and motives of doing more things with regards films, feature films, music, etc. going forward. And the only way in order to do that and the technical aspects behind it was to be acquired and have that new investor and have that new financial footing. Of course, you can remain stable and be okay as a studio, but to grow, you need an investment of money from somewhere.
Yeah, that's what is exactly my thought when I heard this.
And the one thing that we seen the other day as well, specifically when it comes to Square Enix and obviously them being folded in and merged into Eidos. When you look into it, the Square Enix studio was currently working on Hitman Go, a mobile app. Now, if I was, no offense to mobile gamers, but if I'm a gaming developer and Embracer are coming to us and say, listen, do you want to continue working on a mobile game, or would you rather be merged with Eidos Montreal and work on big AAA titles, like something actually big, something tasty to work on, not a mobile game? I think every developer would say, absolutely, I want a chance to make something truly great and stand out. So Eidos, I remember, we all remember growing up with Eidos when they were doing the Tomb Raiders originally. Among many other games growing up, Eidos were one of the big studios before they were acquired by Square Enix. And of course, I think going forward, there is a chance with the right support under Embracer that Eidos Montreal will be big again. Crystal Dynamics, I absolutely believe will be perfectly fine. They're a tremendous studio with a lot of talent. So I don't see Embracer getting rid of them regardless. And people still, and the one thing I laugh about is people like, oh, Microsoft will buy Embracer. The problem you've got, and any company for that matter, the problem you've got there is that Embracer have probably 80, 90 companies, and only about a quarter of those are gaming related. The others are like book companies or merchandise shops or online stores or music related. Like they are vastly different companies that they've got in there. Is literally all encompassing. So while it could provide some benefits, purchasing Embracer Group to Sony or Xbox wouldn't make the greatest of sense either.
Well, I'm not 100% sure if I agree there, because the first thing that popped into my head was the money thing as well. Then I thought about this a little bit more, and if you think about this, what kind of IPs do they have now? They have like a Tomb Raider, which is like one of the biggest IPs in gaming, and they have Deus Ex and all these IPs, and running a studio like Crystal Dynamics costs a lot, and I mean really a lot of money. And if we look at the acquisitions that Embracer has been doing, and they have been acquiring a lot of studios over the last years. Yeah, they've. I'm talking here like I think they have a little bit above 90 studios now. So it's really a massive a group here, but they are all small studios. And like you said, they provide them financial security. A Crystal is a completely different ballpark. If you want to develop the next Tomb Raider with all like the technical stuff and the mocap and this AAA game development, that is an entirely different investment that you have to make. Like literally, they paid 240 million, or was it for all those studios and those IPs? It costs more to make the next Tomb Raider game alone. And so I'm not really sure if an Embracer Group that has never done something like that before, if that's their end game, do they want to get into AAA blockbuster development in the year 2022, 2023 and beyond?
Well, they kind of tried that almost with Saints Row, right? And it kind of backfired them a little bit. You know, I wouldn't say that's quite on the same tier as like Tomb Raider, you know what I mean? But they still acknowledge that it didn't do as well as they had hoped, and the reviews weren't as high as they had hoped, and all that kind of stuff. So.
And that's really like the risk of AAA game development these days. They cost hundreds of millions to make, another couple of hundred millions to advertise and market, and you got to see that return of investment, and that's really a high risk for an Embracer Group. So I'm not sure if it's they don't see this as a possibility to just like, okay, hey, we have now these studios, we have the partnerships with Fable and with Perfect Dark, and once this deal is done, let's talk about a financial agreement that suits us all, and just
on the partnership side of things, the benefit there you've got though is that you've got less. Embracer Group have less financial worry. So if they essentially lending out Crystal Dynamics or lending out Eidos to help with games, they're already earning financially from Microsoft.
That's also true. That is true. Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't see this as a no, absolutely not.
What they can do as well on there is take the glory if those games do well. Things say, look what we help with.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm just saying I don't see this
the logic behind it. 100% understand
that it's out of the possibilities. So yeah, we shall see. It will be.
I would say personally, I would say Crystal is a maybe,
Mm,
with them being California based, and the reason I'm saying this specifically is Adios, specifically Adios, obviously Montreal.
yeah.
You've sections of those are working in France, section of those working in Canada. You have the European connection. A lot of the studios bought by Embracer and molded by Embracer are European
Yeah.
for a reason. The owner is himself is Norwegian, so
I mean that's the reason why Square got rid of them, right? They wanted to get rid of their Western division.
Well, now they're almost backtracking on that decision. It seems like
yeah.
Square.
Yeah.
You never know with Square, man. They just don't know what they're doing.
You really don't. ABC AB72 in chat reminded us they also made Guardians of the Galaxy, which is true.
Yeah, they did a fantastic game. I'm curious though. I mean, we all know that. Like, I mean, we would all agree that Microsoft isn't done acquiring studios, right? Or potentially even publishers. You know, so I mean, it's come out from people that are way more connected than us that they are still actively talking to publishers, but they really can't do anything until this ABK deal's done, right? So
let's talk about that. Let's use that as a segue.
My two big hopes there, Mav. My two big hopes for acquisitions, and I'm going to just state them out loud straight away here.
Okay.
Is Asobo Studio, absolutely 100% Asobo, and Crytek still Crytek.
Yeah. Crytek would be amazing.
Yeah, Crytek would be my wish. I always mention Crytek as first on my wish list. They make so much sense because if you look at what Microsoft tried to acquire with these acquisitions, it's not just like a studio and or a certain IP. They also try to acquire great tech. The CryEngine still is one of the most technically advanced engines out there, and the studio has been in financial trouble for years. They literally are only alive because the German government came in and is still funding them. So yeah, it would only make sense to get them. Asobo, I think if Asobo wanted to get acquired, they already would have been acquired by Microsoft. I think Asobo just wants to stay independent. It's just, although they would make a lot of sense as well.
They have that rock solid relationship with Microsoft at the minute. So
they do. You
just never know.
You never know. You never know. And we have your bet down, man. And the chat and I, we are not forgetting. But the question really is, when is this ABK deal done? When can Microsoft actually act on the, let's say, international stage again with these acquisitions? Because the entire gaming industry is on a acquisition spree. Everyone's selling or buying studios left and right, or entire publishers. And this deal is now almost, well, they announced that in January, and ever since, Microsoft wasn't really able to do anything, basically, other than trying to acquire them. And we have had a lot of talk about the FTC in the US, the CMA in the UK, and now we had some infos on the European watchdog in the EU. This is comes from a report from Politico, and they said that Microsoft had a deadline as of midnight, October 31st, to submit commitments to the EU that would help ease their concerns about the deal. So it sounds very similar to what happened in the UK with the CMA a couple of months ago. And Microsoft apparently didn't submit anything. And so that's why they are also going in a more in-depth investigation phase, which is going to start now. And depending on the outcome of this investigation phase, it will take at least another 4 to 6 months. So now we are talking here about a decision from the EU in like April, maybe even May next year, something in that ballpark. So yeah, I think the acquisition is gonna take a little longer than we all hope for, and I'm just personally hoping that Microsoft is not missing out on some great publishers like rumors have been out there with Ubisoft. Rumors have been out there with CD Projekt Red. You just mentioned Crytek, Asobo. There's really there are so many possible acquisitions, and yeah. So I want to ask you, gentlemen, the question: when do you think will we finally see an end of this entire discussion? Dutch, do you want to go first this time?
June 2023 will be the end of the Activision Blizzard. That'll be done.
Yeah, I mean, they
But-
said they wanted to finish this in this fiscal year, which would be end of June.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be June with all the final decisions. Europeans just went into phase 2. UK's in phase 2. FTC, we don't know yet what they plan to do. But the vast majority, I would imagine, would have them all approved by late April, May. We know the UK is going to be March when they make their final decision.
Yeah.
So June, I think it'll be wrapped up by then. It's not to say though that they don't already have some agreements with other studios in principle for purchase. The one thing I hope Sony aren't doing with regards to the arguments they're having is waiting to complete takeovers until this deal is done. Because Sony are still in the acquisition phase as well. They're still looking at studios to acquire, and I hope that whatever studios they are in talks with, they're not holding off on until next year just because of what's going on with Activision Blizzard. Because again, that would be messing around staff who are potentially awaiting something, and it's kind of an uncertainty: are we being acquired? Are we not being acquired? What's going on? And of course, they won't be able to get told and or be able to speak about it. So there's going to be a lot of movements, but there's going to be a lot of things on ice industry-wide until this Activision Blizzard thing's complete.
That's true. That's true. Matt, what's your guess? When will we see the end of this?
I've said for a while now that earliest I think is March or so, and I kind of stand behind that. But it almost seems like Microsoft knew all along this was going to be end of fiscal year 2023 for them, June time. So I think they set the expectation right to begin with, right?
Yeah.
For everybody, and it would take everybody kind of just being like, okay, throwing our hands up and moving on at some point, like in March, for it to happen earlier, I think.
Yeah.
Microsoft's been one step ahead of the game this entire way, with everything, and I feel like they kind of just knew what was going to happen all along. I think some of the outcry from Sony caught them by surprise. I
think especially that they do it this publicly. Honestly,
and the CMA being as public as they were and parroting Sony as well, I think took them by surprise because, they did expect it to go to phase 2 in most of the major territories, right? And they understood what that process was going to be like because this is the biggest acquisition in the company's history, right? And you're talking about a major tech giant. It was going to go to phase 2 all along. The interesting stuff was just the reasoning behind it and the excuses behind it, and trying to champion, PlayStation, or that they kind of took exception with. And I think that's the only thing that really took them by surprise, I think. But other than that, they've been a step ahead of this game the whole way through. And so because of that, why not just expect that what they said all along is going to happen, and that would be June. But if they only thing where I say it could be sooner is if like the EU, the CMA and everything, or let's say when the CMA's deadline is in March, right? Because I think they're the most highest scrutiny type regulator group out there right now, the most public.
Yeah.
So if they throw their hands up and they say they can't do anything with it, at that point, does everybody else just kind of like say, yeah, let's just move on from this, right? Because I imagine it's a lot of time and effort to try and look for stuff, to try and battle something like that and come up with things. And other things, you have other things on the docket that you could be spending time on. And I think that's the deadline is in, well, you said like 4 to 6 months potentially for the EU, right? So there's no reason that couldn't happen potentially sooner than that. I think it's just becomes a discussion phase from here on out with the phase 2, and part of the reason that Microsoft didn't submit anything, which was their plan all along, is because I don't believe we're given any information on what these regulators want as a concession, right? Like, so what are they supposed to submit exactly? Like,
Yeah.
what are you asking for? To be more clear on what you need from us to be able to get this deal done. And unless they have those answers, like, you can't really submit anything. And they're not going to go submit a lifetime contract of perpetuity for
Yeah.
PlayStation to get a game. That's just like unreasonable, really, for any regulator to ask in an industry like this. So I think it's just all up in the air with what's going to go on now. It's going to be still some posturing, but the behind the
Yeah.
scenes stuff where it gets down into uh, legal ramifications and where companies look at and the regulators look at, do we have any ground to stand on? That's where things are going to get really interesting. And I think that ultimately it gets done. I think there was even a tech like financial or financial website that gave it like a 80% chance of approval recently.
Yeah.
That gives like financial advice and stuff. So there's no reason to think there's going to be any major issues holding this
Yeah.
up. It just depends on how long these regulators want to drag it out for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, and I think this is basically what you said last is probably also the strategy from Sony. They know that they will not be
Yeah.
able to like stop the deal, but they know that they can delay it, and the delay costs Microsoft not just a lot of money, but the time thing is
Yeah.
really what I said earlier. That the industry is in an acquisition phase, and with them delaying the deal, they open up the chances for themselves to get studios like Bungie, like all these other acquisitions that they have been doing. So yeah, my personal guess is also that it's probably very at the end of the next of their next fiscal year, so May or June next year. I don't think it's gonna be early next year like everyone was hoping. It's gonna be more towards the mid of next year probably. But I still think the deal will go through, and yeah, we'll probably have this as a topic again very soon, because on a regular basis we get these news items on the deal. But I want to talk about a game that came out. That comes out next week, but today the embargo's dropped, and that is God of War. God of War Ragnarok is getting fantastic reviews. We just checked before the show. It has the same Metacritic right now, like the 2018 God of War. It's sitting at 94 right now on Meta. Not that this really matters, but a lot of the reviewers are giving it fantastic scores. The sentiment is super positive, and I want to know from you, gentlemen. We touched on this very early in the beginning of the show, but let's talk about this a little bit. Are you guys excited for God of War? What are your expectations, and do you think it deserves? It's gonna deserve these very, very high scores right now. Let's go with you first. Since you basically look like Kratos without the red stripes.
This is what happens when Kratos is finished in the Norse mythology sector. He gets a desk job.
In the last God of War, who was the guy that got Kratos fought like at the beginning of the game?
Baldur.
Yeah, that's who you look like, Dutch. 100%.
Yeah, it's I've said this for a while. Obviously, it's more of the same. There's some enhancements. The combat is improved. The world is improved. The length of the game is substantially longer over the last one. It's almost double by all accounts. But the only thing that I had for it, the only reserve I had for it, was the story was that good in 2018. How could they top it? And would they make the finale of the game justifiable? Because of course it isn't a trilogy. This is the end of the Norse saga before they move on to whatever next for God of War. So how is it a justifiable ending? Is it an ending that it makes you feel fulfilled, like they've done that saga justice with its ending? And by all accounts, the reviews are giving it really positive. And I looked at the story element of the reviews more than anything else. Is
Yeah.
the story good more than gameplay or anything else? I knew the gameplay was going to be good. I knew performance-wise it was going to be good. I knew graphically it was going to be stunning. So I didn't care about looking at what that was about because that's almost a guarantee with Sony Santa Monica. It's just this: is the story going to live up to expectations and surpass what was already a tremendous game? And by all accounts, it looks like the story has evolved and has got better than 2018. So it's got me even more excited for it, knowing that according to pretty much all of them across the board, the story is actually better than 2018, which for me sounds like an achievement in itself. Like, how could they surpass that story? But they've managed it, so super excited.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm on a similar side here with you, but Mav, where do you stand with it? You said the first one didn't really grab you, and you wasn't able to
Yeah.
keep your attention. But we hear that it has even surpassed for a lot of reviewers this one. So are you gonna give this a chance?
Yeah, I will for sure. I'm not going to be like day one on it just
Mm.
because it's expensive and I got a lot of games I'm playing right now. But I will dab into it when it either comes out on the subscription service or when it's on sale at some point. It might be like a Black Friday sale. I might pick it up physical at some point. I think that the God of War 2018 like looks it feels great. Like the story is good. Just for whatever reason, I just was getting bored. And that's just a personal thing. It's nothing against the game, right? I can look at that game and be like, wow, I can
Yeah.
tell that that's like a masterpiece type game. Just for whatever reason, it wasn't registering with me and like making me have fun wanting to go back to it.
I'm
Maybe
exactly
some
the same with Red Dead, Mav. I'm exactly the same with Red
and see
Dead.
for
I
Red
know,
Dead, like like it hooked me. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it just depends. You know what I mean, Dutch? Like we all have those games, and for me,
I've
like
got it, and I know it looks stunning, and I know it's a masterpiece, and I've heard how good it is, and I've played it, and it's great, but something didn't catch us. So I'm exactly the same as you with
yeah.
God of War.
And The
So
Last
yeah,
of Us was like that for me too. But like
yeah,
Uncharted is like one of my favorite franchises in gaming.
yeah.
So it's nothing against the developers or necessarily the style of game. It's just something just for whatever reason in a certain game or franchise just doesn't 100% register to make you have fun or want to go back to it. And 2018 was like that for me when I was like kind of in awe of the graphics and the voice acting and the story and some of that stuff. But at the same point, I was like, eh, do I want to play that or something else? And I just went to something else again instead of going back into it. And I think that for me, that's held my hype back a lot for Ragnarok. Even though I know that it's going to be another masterpiece for a lot of people, I didn't ever really have any excitement for it until I saw the last trailer at their last game showcase.
Yeah.
At the last state of play, then they had it was only like a 20-minute state of play or something, but it was a well used 20 minutes. I mean, they
It
had
was
some
an
great
incredible trailer,
yeah.
really. One of the best in years I've seen. Yeah,
That
yeah.
that trailer's highlighted a lot of things in it that made me a little bit more interested because uh they had a lot of variety with the enemies
Mm,
and the environments and a lot of things that just looked like more eye catching and appealing to me, like
yeah.
something I would maybe want to experience. So the thing I've been battling with is like, do I need to finish 2018 or do I want to force myself to finish 2018 or would that ruin this game as well?
Mm,
If I'm playing something I'm not entirely in love with. So my conclusion is I have so many games to play right now that at some point I'll just catch up on the story with like a YouTube video or something, and then play Ragnarok when it's like on sale or something,
yeah.
and then dive into it and hope it grabs me like 2018 never did. It's definitely something I am going to try for sure,
Mm.
right? When games like this come out, a lot of times I get FOMO.
Yeah.
Um, and but there's so many in December right after this and stuff, and I'm really hooked on some of the other stuff I'm playing right now. It's like it can kind
Mm,
of wait because what I don't want to happen when I do play Ragnarok is I don't want to start playing it and then stop. I want to have that experience where I get sucked in and it's all I play until I finish. Right? That doesn't happen for me very much, and with many games. But I feel like a game like this is the best way to experience it. And there's too many other things that just have my attention right now.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there is
dude,
a lot to play. There is a lot to play, and a lot of other games are also gonna come out this month. So
these
I get that.
reviews are impressive, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome to see that, hey, AAA game development can still release a big, polished 90 plus experience from one of these first party studios that's a story based game. And a lot of people for a long time said, oh, AAA gaming is dead, or AAA gaming is too hard, or too this or that, or whatever. But then you have a game like Elden Ring come out earlier this year, that like just crushed it. And you have a game now like Ragnarok, and you best believe this is going to be probably Sony's best selling game this generation. And I feel like it's a good launching point going into 2023, because I feel like this game is kicking off this November, and 2023 is going to be a year to remember, and that was going to be kind of like mind blowing. And this is going to be that great segue into the real next generation of gaming. Even though I would still say like this game doesn't look like entirely different than 2018 from what I've seen so far. So it is a cross generational title, but still that playing this at 60 frames, and I'm assuming it's 60 frames, right? It better be.
It has.
A game like that.
The most modes I've ever seen in a game.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think like 6 modes
insane,
on PS5. Yeah.
So they just really went above and beyond to do the complete experience on this, and that's the best benefit. I like that direction when they give everything that the gamers are asking for. You know what I mean, and really take their time with it. So, but kudos to Sony Santa Monica for making what seems to be another masterpiece. And they also, they cracked that 90. That was a big thing for them this generation. Like, well, all their games are like in the 80s now, so are they going to be able to hit plus 90 again? What was relegated as if it's not in plus 90, it's not a banger to some people. You know what I mean?
You've got to applaud on that point, Mav, as well. One thing you have to applaud them is it's what very few studios managed to get the sequel above the original, or at least on par with the original. So it's a massive achievement for them, and Colt pointed it out actually on Twitter before, of course, Fanboy posts underneath it, but Forza Horizon and God of War are the only two with sequels that have actually surpassed or got stuck into the 90s.
He got trashed for that post.
yeah. Consecutively, and it is a good point. It's both those studios are phenomenal. So hats off to both of them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's good to see like a certain level of quality like get matched every time you put out a release. That's what really puts a studio up there, I believe, like as a top developer, when like people can just count on it being top notch, top tier, top quality. And people ask, hey, why do you get excited for a game like Starfield? You know what I mean? Because I played Skyrim, and I played Fallout, and I played Oblivion, and you know what I mean? Like, you just have a level of expectations that what this developer puts out, you're gonna love. And that's one of the best things about some of these Sony first party studios is they just they don't miss. You know what I mean? They just don't miss.
That's a very good point.
It's the level of storytelling from these Sony studios is almost unmatched, and that's one thing Xbox need to strive for. Is getting the stories, the story-based games.
Yeah, I do feel like I agree with you, Dutch. I still feel like in the sense of Sony, I do appreciate that because it stands above, right?
Yeah,
but I do think they need to do some other stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because it is like they got it down so much, and they know what was going to review well. They know it'd be really exciting, but they got all these franchises that have that same note. You know what I mean? That same kind of tone of like storytelling and stuff. And
they really need to get into the multiplayer space here.
And we know they are, but will they do it successfully? That's the catch, right?
That's a very good question. Yeah. I mean, I put up a poll in chat. I want to know from you guys, so definitely make sure to vote here. We have around about 100 viewers here right now, which is awesome. Shout out to you guys. So let us know, are you gonna play God of War Day 1 on sale or not? I definitely want to know that from you guys. And if you're fumbling around in the chat, it would also be absolutely awesome of you to consider to hit the like button. We have 100 viewers and only 42 likes so far. It would be awesome to get that number up a little bit. That would definitely be appreciated. And I want to shout out Clutchman01 for a $5 super chat. He says, thank you first for the support. And he says, not sure if anyone's mentioned it. He just tuned in, but the new Forza Horizon 5 expansion confirmed for early 23 during the Forza monthly episode today. I had no idea. Where is what's that DLC?
Another bonus.
Yeah.
They're also adding more in-depth ray tracing for PC coming very shortly.
I'm gonna reinstall it on my 3080 then. Definitely. So has anyone seen that announcement? I gotta admit, I was so busy with work today, I didn't really.
It wasn't so much an announcement as it is. It's they do a Forza monthly live stream.
Yeah.
It was just on the live stream that they mentioned that the DLC.
And did they mention where this DLC is located? What's the setting of it?
Nope. They're gonna talk more about it in the new year, but it is releasing early 23.
Early 23. So since they are probably not gonna bet that against Forza Motorsport, that should be then an indication where Forza Motorsport is gonna land next. Yeah, if that's the DLC, then we'll see Forza definitely a little later that year. Thank you, man, Clutchman. I did not know that. I would love to go back to Forza Horizon. I haven't played that in far too long, honestly. Good stuff here. Yeah, as for my opinion on God of War Ragnarok, I mean, you guys pretty much covered all the basics and things that I also would have said. So I'm not going to repeat those. Yeah, we all knew this was going to review well. This was clear that it's apparently the story is even on another level than the first one. A lot of people are praising the side missions as well, which is also cool to see, because like the first one had those side missions, but they were not really okay to play, but not really story-wise that interesting to me. But I've seen people actually compare the quality of the side quests to The Witcher 3, which is I'm not sure if that's justified, because man, Witcher 3. But yeah, I'm super excited. I actually wanted to take a day off work next week for it, but last week my boss came to me and we had to cancel that. I have to go on a business trip that day. God damn it. Still gonna play it though. And I cannot wait. Honestly, this is why I bought a PS5. Like these big AAA single player experiences, I just love them. I do. And like you said, Santa Monica, one of the best in the business. And I truly cannot wait to play this game. But yeah, man, I want to move on from Ragnarok because we have so many other things to talk about. We will talk about the big Phil Spencer interview and the tease of a couple of things like Fable and new hardware. But since we are on the PlayStation topic, we also had a big news item this week from PlayStation that didn't go as well as the launch of or the reviews for Ragnarok. And that is that they had their yearly or quarterly earnings report. So Sony Gaming profits fell 49% short in the last quarter. In total, PS5 console sales were 5.7 million for the first half of their fiscal year, which is short of Sony's unchanged target actually of 18 million. They wanted to sell 18 million this fiscal year. In the first half, they only sold 5.7, so they fall behind that. Of course, God of War is gonna probably boost the console sales over the holiday season now. But the fiscal year is gonna end in March 23, and no one is really expecting them to hit that 18 million target. So I want to read briefly from this earnings report. While Sony Game and Network Services division reported Q2 revenues of $4.88 billion US dollars, up 12% year over year on a record Q2 in terms of Japanese yen figures, profit fell significantly by 49%. Which is $284.6 million US dollars. Sony said its decline in gaming profits was due to an increase in game development and acquisition costs, including its purchase of Bungie, as well as the negative impact of foreign exchange rates, reflecting a high ratio of US dollars. Software sales increased over the quarter, but overall the revenue went down. Blah, 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 blah. And then for the second quarter in a row, the company saw a decline in number of PS Plus subscribers. Since the introduction of their revamped PS Plus, they have seen a decline of 2 million subs on PS Plus subscribers. And Sony has an explanation for that as well. They said it's because people go a little bit more outside these days than in the last years. And overall, third-party releases were relatively light this year. So, gentlemen, I want to definitely know from you guys, what do you make of this? Sony's gaming division not doing that well from this fiscal year report. I mean, they got a few points, like the exchange rate. Obviously, that is changing a lot. The euro is very weak these days. The US dollar is very strong these days. Yen is also not that strong these days. So that definitely influences, of course, a Japanese-based company, no doubt. There's also a point in we didn't have that many third-party releases. We've seen this similar argument in Microsoft's earnings report that the amount of third-party releases this year, especially in the AAA space, are light. What is new to me is the argument about people going more outside these days. So I want to know from you guys, what are you making of this? That you're already laughing. So let's give your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange to say that in a financial report, but it makes sense, of course, because obviously what we had, and we've spoke about this before, is specifically during COVID and the stay at home and the work from home stuff, is you get a lot of people have a lot more time on their hands when obviously they're in the house, they're able to game more. When you're locked in the house because of lockdowns and things like that, of course, more people invest in games, to buy more gaming stuff. They've got nothing else to spend the money on because they're stuck in the house. So they're like, oh, well, I may as well get this game and I'll buy this thing and I'll do this. And I've got a new racing seat, so I'm going to play the racing game. And I'm going to buy this new headset. And so it's going to have, in both Microsoft and Sony, saw record engagement, record player counts, record revenues, record subscription things, etc. But naturally, the more people are able to go outside and interact with each other again and go back on holiday because there is no flight restrictions and things anymore, and naturally, of course, you're going to have the opposite effect when people are able to do those things again. They're going to go back and they're going to start traveling and seeing friends and spending more time outside and things like that. So it's strange saying it in a report, but it makes sense in this in this scenario, because, of course, I don't think in any case, in any financial report ever, it would have made sense to say that. But with the last few years we've had, it absolutely makes sense as to why they're referring to that. On the other front, though, in terms of their profits falling and things like that, of course, what happens with the tail end of an acquisition is that you have to post those losses somewhere. So of course that is going to be on this financial report. So you're going to see Sony's profits and revenues increase substantially again the next financial segment, because of course they've already reported those losses for the acquisition of Bungie previously, which was in the billions. So it's a substantial.
Although it's weird to me to point that out as a loss, because what you usually do in a business report is you don't point out costs for acquisitions as a loss.
Yeah.
But it's because
I think it's the wording's a bit weird. The wording's certainly weird, but I think because Microsoft, of course, do the same thing. Like well, the difference is, I suppose, is that it doesn't. The way Microsoft report is obviously the acquisition of Activision Blizzard is a Microsoft takeoff as opposed to an Xbox Studios takeoff.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't reflect on Xbox Studios earnings; it would reflect on Microsoft's earnings. Whereas on Sony's front, the acquisition of Bungie is obviously reflected across the board because it isn't a kind of separated thing there. The content and services, etc., and gaming revenue is down because of that. So they are reflecting it on the gaming front as opposed to the company front. But to be honest, I'm not looking too much into these. We've seen exactly the same things kind of from Microsoft. Obviously, although they're still performing financially well, it's not to what they expected. But you can only ride the COVID stay-at-home wave for so long until people are obviously starting to get back to their normal lives, and gaming will take a little bit of a hit. It's not to say it won't recover. There's a lot of things, especially you've got to look at what's happening in Central Europe at the moment as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people, of course, have either taken up different things, doing a lot of things, not even including the financial issues that we've got, but the conflict itself has uprooted millions of people.
Yeah.
And those out of those millions of people will be millions of customers as well, essentially across the board. PlayStation, Sony, Nintendo, that are not spending because they've got far more things to think about. So no,
I mean that's definitely something you bring up a great point here. Since of course the gaming demand is probably different now that more or less the pandemic is I don't want to say over, but because
subsided.
COVID's still around. But you know what you guys know what I mean. That's definitely an argument. I still think the bigger argument is probably the one that there were simply not that many third-party games, and Sony as a platform holder definitely relies on that. And that brings my question to Mav. I mean, Sony has taken a lot of countermeasures for that earnings report, like increasing console prices, game prices have been increased. That should definitely boost the earnings report. But could it also be that, I don't know, customers don't see the same value in there? That's why they see a decline in PS Plus subscribers. And could this be a strategy for Sony to increase the value proposition to their customers in order to make a higher revenue in the next fiscal year?
Yeah, and I differ with Dutch a little bit on this because I think that they were using the excuses for obviously well, everybody we had everything was so up right for 2 years, and now it's obviously stabilizing and stuff, and which has happened across the industry. So that there's merit to that, except for where it comes to, for me, some of their excuses when it comes to the subscriptions and stuff like that, because Xbox has seen growth there still, right?
Yeah.
So, and Xbox has less market share than Sony does. Even though Xbox is gaining market share, they're still nowhere near number one. So you would think that if you're the number one in gaming and if you had a compelling subscription service, that your subscriptions would still be growing if the other competitors are still growing, right? Despite everything.
Do you think on that point, do you think the restructure of PS Plus and its pricing format might have caused an issue with that?
Well, the interesting thing is, right, because if you look at, and this is a comparison between Xbox, because I think that they're the easiest to, obviously, in the entire industry to compare, right? PlayStation and Xbox, because they're direct competitors in the console space. They're both the AAA gaming devices, right, for console gamers and stuff. And with Microsoft's subscription service, they've had hardly any first party this year, right? They've had some, a little bit. Sony, you can look at, they've had no first party in their subscription service either, because except for older back catalog games, because they don't put their games in. So you still look at value one for one there, and Xbox is still growing. Now, next year, what happens when Xbox has all of this first party stuff hits, right? In a year where Sony's down right now, they also did have a lot of first party releases, which was an excuse for why Xbox isn't as good as it could have been. But Xbox still saw growth, right? Xbox still saw overall revenue go up. They still saw subscriptions go up. They still saw a lot of these things. It's not as much as it would have been, despite the like pandemic and everything. But they're still like close to those pre-pandemic numbers. Now, Phil said that their subscriptions like are not as much as they wanted to get to, and part of that's because of the first party stuff. So I don't know, like when I look at it one for one, I feel like Sony not having day and date content in their subscription service is never going to make that service grow, because you had this new launch, a lot of hype about it, a lot of talk about it, a lot of shows talking about it, a lot of prominent people in the community, a lot of gaming websites talking about it, a lot of advertising about it from Sony, all these different things. Why are people dropping the service, right? So obviously they don't see the value there. So
yeah.
And I think Xbox has proven, based on the fact that their financials have been more stable because of their services, that is a good model in gaming, and maybe better for this era that we're moving into, because it's becoming more stable in this environment that all these other gaming companies are battling with right now. And Sony can say, yes, we're down because of this and that, but a lot of studios are still up. Right, a lot of them are still up. There you have like Bandai Namco, obviously, with Elden Ring. You have like Capcom's killing it still, and
Nintendo's smashing it.
Nintendo's still smashing. You see a little slight downtrend on like stock values across the year, but nothing like Sony's.
Yeah,
right. Sony's is like crazy.
Sony's
like,
stock is actually on an all-time low right now.
Yeah. Right. So, and that's PlayStation's are their biggest profit generator, right? So
yeah.
When that's taking a hit like it is, something's not clicking right. Something's not going right. I feel like with Xbox and Game Pass proving that it's profitable now, it took an investment to get to this point, right? I feel like they've justified the fact that this can be a valid, stable, sustainable, profitable avenue for gaming and for people's choice. And PlayStation has dipped their toe in the water. They've been shy to get started with this. It seems like they have a battle internally about what they want to do with it, because they had this whole rebranding of their services, but without really the content to back it up. Right. So if they really want to take it seriously and get with what is going to be going on in the digital future, which also over 60% of their transactions on PlayStation are still digital. If they really want to get behind this and embrace it, they need to start putting some content in there day one. And if not day one, then at least shortly thereafter. I mean, you have franchises and games that just do not make any sense why they are not in the service. Destiny is not in there. They bought Bungie. Why is Destiny not in there? Why is Gran Turismo 7 not in there? That's like one of the live service games that they've launched. It has a lot of transactions and stuff in there now. And the game's been out for a while.
At least half a year. It was and
instead we get day one games like Stray, which is cool. That's enough to generate some excitement, but it's not enough to stabilize you month after month after month. And there's only so much that your back catalog can hold you. They said themselves, well, who wants to play old games, right? Like, people like to play old games. They like the options of it, but people also want new games. That's
the thing.
Why people sign up for the service.
It's the thing about their entire service. It from the very beginning, it kind of felt like they're not really behind that subscription model. I mean, they set one up now because they kind of had to, in order to say we have a similar thing. And I still think the value is good in general. It's just not as good as Game Pass. But if you look at it from a PlayStation only gamer, what you get for your money, you get a lot of games. There are a lot of games in there, even though it's not like on the same level like Game Pass, but still you get a good value for your for your money. But yeah, it just feels like Sony isn't really behind the entire subscription model.
And I feel like Xbox is ahead of the game there too, with getting on the PC and doing all that, because they've seen what was like 170 something % growth on PC Game Pass as well, right? So that plus the deals they've been made with Fortnite and the fact that they have that less expensive console out there to drive consumers to the brand as well. So there's lots of avenues where Xbox and Microsoft are being really aggressive. Guess what? You can still be aggressive and take losses in certain areas like hardware and still be profitable like Xbox is. So a little bit of it's like, I think Sony's ego catching up with them here, you know? And well, we're going to be the premium device. We're going to be the premium this. We're going to be the premium that. We're going to have the best of this, the best of that, and you're going to have to pay for it. And it's just not registering as well as it did last generation right now.
That's why I didn't understand why they increased the actual console for PlayStation, because I understand as much as them wanting to make more of a profit on it. However, in the grand scheme of things, an area that's never going to actually change the overheads as much as they would want to would be hardware. No matter how much, even if you chuck that up by 50 per month for every unit sold, in the grand scheme of things, across the lifetime of that console, the actual financial benefit in terms of profit from that increase would outweigh the amount of customers you could have had if it wasn't, which means you're probably making a loss over over that increase. Which
I think for Sony, it's because they know that they're selling every single one that they can make regardless. Right.
Yeah.
So if they had like a surplus, or if they weren't selling out within the demand that they have, the issue there is supply constraints. I think if they were still had a option that was available, like whenever you walk into a store, you know what I mean? At that point, I don't know if they would have gone up, because I feel like they only went up, as most of these companies have done, because they can. I think was it Phil Spencer said in the interview, like they lose like $100 to $200 per console right now, or something like that.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Crazy number, which is actually higher than you would actually think it is, probably because of a lot of the pricing issues going on in the world right now. You know what I mean? But there's still, even with all of that, with as big of a part of the revenue as the console hardware makes up, right? Because these boxes are $300 or $500, they're still able to turn a profit because of their subscriptions and services, because they have enough value there to drive consumers to those platforms, to the ecosystem.
I was going to say that's the point, Mav, because even if Xbox is, say, they've sold 50 million consoles, let's say, as just as a rule of thumb, and you're losing 100 on every one of those 50 million, that's a big hit. But on the content, as long as the contents and services are there, you're making billions on the contents and services, so it far outweighs that. So you can,
which is where it was. I mean,
that's been the business model in the console space from the very beginning. Make a loss on the hardware and make it back 3 times on software sales. And that brings me actually to an adjacent topic, because for the next fiscal year, or the next report that they are going to publish, they will not just have that holiday season with God of War Ragnarok, they will also have the launch of PSVR 2, which is now coming on February 22nd. And I was honestly surprised about this price point, and I want to discuss that with you. Will that help boost this the Sony revenue? Because we have like a price tag here for PSVR 2 in the US of $550 US. They sell it here in Europe for 600 euros, which is also interesting to see. Again, why is Europe paying more again for the same? And the same, by the way, in the UK, they will sell it at £530 there.
That's
There will
not
also
including the controller charging station for an additional.
Oh yeah,
40.
no, that's not included, and it doesn't include a game. You can buy the bundle with with Horizon Call of the Mountain, which is a launch game, but then you will have to pay $50 everywhere more for it. So, I mean that's a hefty price point to ask, given that we are on the brink of a recession, on a global recession. People are struggling, of course, already with energy prices, especially across Europe. Europe has been hit a little harder in terms of energy price increase math than the US have. We also suffer from the very weak euro, which is on an all-time low right now. And now you come in for an entertainment product, PlayStation VR2, and ask for 600 euros or 550 US dollars respectively.
And I would
I
always
guess
also say, I would also say on that, even with that price, I don't think that product is turning a profit.
probably not.
It's a very powerful VR device, right?
It is.
The only
It
thing
is.
is it only has so much growth potential for a market because it's tied behind a console. You
Yeah.
know, so I don't think it's going to help them at all. You know what I mean? It's going to help VR, and it's going to help VR grow and become more of a household thing, and people get used to it more, and you know, pushing the technology forward, which I appreciate Sony for doing that, right? Um, but it's only
Yeah.
real market there for me is like the enthusiast. You know what I mean? The real VR enthusiast, or because you're talking about paying more for that than the actual console. So you're talking about having to first get a console, and then you have to be a VR enthusiast, right?
Yeah.
It's not a standalone handset. It's not. But if you're spending 550 for a VR headset, it's because you're a VR enthusiast. It's not just a hey, I'm going to try this, right? That's a big ask. That's a big purchase, right? So you question like who they're battling against in that space. Again, you got the Meta Quest Pro coming out, and which is another enthusiast type device as well, I would say, with that crazy price point. But
Yeah.
that's not even tied behind any hardware and it's untethered. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So do you buy a PS5 and that for 550, or do you just get the MetaQuest Pro? Or do you already have a PC because you're already already a VR enthusiast and have a rig that's capable of doing it and get whatever the next best greatest headset is for PC? The thing is, I think you can use the PSVR for PC, but I don't think it's fully integrated like a Meta Quest or like a HTC Vive type headset and those kind of things,
Yeah.
right? From what I heard about the original PSVR, is they're a little limited with its PC capabilities. So I still don't know 100% about how that's going to go. I personally don't really care either way because I don't have a lot of interest in VR myself. I get a headache, I get dizzy and stuff when I try and use it. And
Motion
once it
sickness, yeah,
catches
okay.
up, when it catches up to the point where I don't feel that, then I'll be more interested in it. And there's also the fact that you lose your surroundings, you lose your like sense of where
Yeah.
you are in the world and things
That's
going on. You have
basically
to be
my
very
biggest
isolated.
problem with VR. Is like I don't realize when my kids come into the room. I don't see that. Yeah, you basically entirely cut off from thing. Have you tried a VR headset, a quality headset? I'm not talking like the OG PSVR 1, but like a premium headset. Because with VR, for me, it's the real difference is when you try a PSVR 1, which really wasn't it from a technological standpoint. If you try this, a lot of people say, well, I get motion sickness, I get headaches, I get this or that. And that's really because the quality isn't good. But once you hit that 120 frames, so like 60 hertz on each eye thing, and a proper resolution, the experience becomes significantly different. So have you tried a quality VR headset?
The best I've tried yet is the Meta Quest 2. Right.
2.
And
Okay.
and that's we have that. We got it for my daughter last year because she really wanted one for Christmas. So that's what we got her for her big Christmas gift. And before that, I was like pretty much day one on VR. I got an Oculus Rift at launch. I had that launch edition of it and everything. And it just like this, I got sick, man. I just like it just didn't work. So I ended up
So
selling
it
it.
might just not be for you. That's totally fine.
But that was,
Yeah.
still that was like the first big one. So, I feel like with MetaQuest 2 would have been is pretty good. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
could stand watching movies or something with it,
Yeah.
The cool thing in there is if you watch like a 3D movie like Avatar or something, you
Yeah.
get a pretty decent experience with that. But overall for gaming, it's just so much movement and stuff, and it's just like it just makes me queasy. That being said, I would willing to try it again in the future once the technology really, really gets there, and maybe this
Mhm.
is it. Maybe this is it. I don't know, but I'm not willing to try it for $550. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
That's a good point. Who is actually just gonna give this a try? You really have to be convinced by the
yeah,
technology and
in the
also the
games,
games, of course.
yeah.
Yeah. You're
At
not
that
gonna
point,
get
PC
that
has more
for
to
one
offer.
game. Yeah.
PC has more to offer, and if you're already that much of a high dollar value in,
Yeah.
I feel like why, unless there's just a specific game that you're interested in, why go that route? You know what I mean?
Mm.
I I feel like the best aspects of VR is about options of what to play from all these different storefronts. So like that's the cool thing about Meta is like even though it's it's tied to Facebook, all that kind of stuff is a little downside, but like it's not really tied to one specific platform, right?
Yeah.
So like Xbox is putting an app on there, and all these different places are putting an app on there. So there's a lot more different things to experience within VR other than just like what this one platform holder is telling me I'm going to get. It's like it's almost like the Apple approach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I prefer like the open approach with when it comes to something like VR. I think that it has much more of a mass market appeal. Once you're untethered as well, it becomes I think more freeing in VR as well. If
Mm.
you have, I don't care, like if you're sitting down stable at a desk or whatever, when you have a wire coming and hanging from your head, you you're going to notice it. You're going to feel it. It's going to bump into you. It's going to get in your way. You're always going to feel a little restricted. So for me, the future of VR really, look, when it really catches mainstream and it's going to have mass appeal, is when a device like the MetaQuest Pro becomes affordable for a mass
Mhm.
market,
Yeah.
right? Because the MetaQuest 2 sold really well, right? Before they upped the
True.
price on it.
Yeah.
Now it's probably not selling as well. But I still feel like it's cool that they're pushing the tech. I'm glad
Yeah.
they're doing it because that's how it needs to get to where it needs to go. But it's not gonna how many PSVRs did they sell on the PS4 that had 150 million
3
consoles
million or
out there?
something, 2, 3 million.
Yeah.
Okay,
Something
and
like
this is
that.
more expensive than that, and also the
Yeah.
PS5 is more expensive and has a
Yeah.
lower install base.
Yeah.
So
Indeed.
it's just not going to be as big of a market as I think they want. Which begs the question: how many games do you make for it? How much development effort do you put into something that only has so much potential to sell? Right?
That's I want to use that as a segue to bring it to Dutch because see that was the weird part for me about this entire announcement. I was expecting that this isn't gonna be cheap. Nothing is recently with Sony, and you know that this is quality tech. So yeah, we knew we have to pay a certain price for it. So I'm not really surprised about the price per se. What I'm really surprised is how they announced this with a blog post.
Yeah.
If you introduce new hardware, new technology, new games, you gotta make it dedicated, like State of Play or something for this. But they just willy nilly dropped that randomly on a Wednesday on a PlayStation blog post. So my question to you, Dutch, is: do you see them really being behind this when they announce it like that?
I don't understand what Sony's deal is this year anyway, or this generation for that matter. It's
Okay.
been such a strange year in terms of the way that they've announced things. Like even God of War Ragnarok was a blog post. Like,
Mhm.
like
Yeah, that's true.
what is
True.
going on? I have no idea what's going on at Sony. Um, I don't know what they're thinking with the PSVR. Again, you kind of understand launching a PSVR 2 more when there is much more of a, as Mav said, an install base to go at, because you have to have a PlayStation 5 in order to play the VR2. There is no other way to play it. not only that, of course, but we know as well you can't play all of your PSVR 1 content on it, which means that the buy-in isn't anywhere near the quoted 550 price. Like the actual buy-in is probably closer to maybe 800 to 1,000 if you add a few games on there.
Yeah.
Not including the PlayStation if you don't already have the PlayStation. So you're talking probably closer to 1,500 when all is said and done. And are people really going to drop that on the PSVR? And again, people with PSVR 1 know that none of their library carries over. None of it. None of it works. They've said, no, it can't work, etc. So we're just going to, just everything is brand new. So he's got a point. I don't understand the reasoning, rhyme, or anything behind it. I don't understand what Sony's issue is this generation. They started off relatively good, but then some of their decisions recently, specifically this year, have been baffling. Really baffling. From a just everything, not even just a financial perspective, just the way that they've went about things. Like in terms of, you want to shout from the rooftops when you've got, like you said, when you're showing off new technology and brand new games, and all of these developers put in all this hard work, and then the way that you announce it is a blog post, and underneath you just put a string of messages about all the new games. Like, is that all that them developers deserve for the hard work that they've put in? Just there's your announcement, just a tweet.
Do you think there's something to that whole thing they're trying to hold back from a big state of play or big showcase because of the ABK deal? You know,
yeah, I think
there's been a conspiracy about that.
Yeah, I think it's funny, but I don't know, because again, it's transparency. At the end of the day, the CMA will have to see what their future pipeline looks like
for sure.
when they do the fact finding.
It's just weird because they had the Final Fantasy 16 had just dropped a new trailer. You know, you had God of War coming out. You had also there was another announcement that happened around Silent Hill. Yeah, that was a big one, right? And then now the PSVR 2, all within like a couple weeks of each other. It seems that would be very fitting for like all to make an amazing showcase.
Yeah, what if you just kept them all for one showcase? That would have been.
That would have been. You know how much hype there would have been? It'd been crazy. But maybe it would have raised questions, you know, with the amount of attention that would have gotten. So potentially, I mean,
I do have my own theory why they don't have a showcase. I feel like 23 is gonna be for them the same like 22 has been for Xbox.
Yeah,
so super light on releases, and that's when you need excitement around your brand. That's when you don't have games to release, you want to excite people with the pipeline of what's to come. And this year they didn't really need it. Xbox made it very easy this year for them, with basically zero major releases, first-party releases.
And Boxy, you have a point there as well, actually. What happened, I think it was last year, when it was like this to and fro with Xbox and PlayStation. Every time Xbox would have a big announcement, PlayStation would come out with a big announcement. And every time Xbox would have another one, then they would check them with another one. I think you have a point. I think next year it could be a case of they know Microsoft has a lot of games coming up next year.
Exactly.
So they could just be saving and waiting for them to just go, the release date is this. And then they go, okay, well then announcing this.
Exactly. And also Xbox didn't have really any major news outside, of course, of the ABK deal. They've been very quiet this year as well. In terms
they were dropping news left and right in 2021. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like they've been quiet for a reason.
They have been quiet because of the ABK deal, and that's why Sony doesn't really need to have anything to counter this. And next year, that's a different story. When Xbox is releasing more or less a major AAA game, either from first party or second party deals, like every month at least for the first half of the year, then they drop a lot of AAA games in Game Pass, and you know that this is gonna create a lot of buzz. The deal will go through next year, probably, like we said earlier, more towards June, so mid next year. But still, after that, you know that Xbox is gonna start to talk about a lot of other stuff, either new announcements, new hardware, I don't know, could be from a controller to the mid-gen refresh consoles, whatever they are gonna reveal. They will start to talk again, and there will be a lot more Xbox news next year. And that's when you need hype around your own brand. That's just my personal suspicion. That's why we have not heard or seen anything from Sony this year in terms of new game announcements or showcases or anything. They just don't need it this year.
Yeah, 2022 was a year for both of them to really hold back. Because even Xbox A3 showcase, they only focused on the 12 months ahead,
Exactly. And a lot of third-party developers did the same. Like EA didn't have anything in terms of a showcase. Ubisoft had their one thing, which was really
a joke. That was so bad.
Light, very light. Yeah. So yeah, it's just what it is this year, and I think it's a very strategic move from Sony. Briefly, I need to shout out Wandering Dutch, who sends in a super chat because he's a channel member for 7 months, and he put in the world of gaming a smiley. So thank you. And I just realized, man, I forgot to close the poll we put up earlier. I'm very sorry for that.
59 votes. That's a good amount of people that voted.
Yeah, that's a good amount of votes. I asked, are you going to play God of War Ragnarok? 22% said day one, 29% said on sale, and 49% said no. So yeah, interesting stuff here. Interesting stuff. It's not as popular as you would expect here on the world of gaming. So we will talk about this once it's out again. And watch some gameplay footage probably here. So yeah, I'm still looking forward to this. All right. Let's talk about Xbox. We have talked a lot about PlayStation, but there's actually also a couple of awesome news items from Xbox. And that's because Phil Spencer gave an interview with iGestine this week, and it wasn't the biggest interview he's ever done, but he hinted at a couple of very interesting things. The first thing I want to bring up here is that Phil Spencer briefly talked about that he has seen Fable. He said it looks awesome, as you would expect. The interesting thing to me about this is, and gentlemen, I want to discuss this with you, of course, but I also want to hear the chat's opinion here on this. Let me spill this out for you. Phil Spencer mentioned Fable, specifically. 4 weeks ago, Matt Booty talked about Fable and that he thinks it's ready, but Playground doesn't want to show it just yet. We've also seen Major Nelson comment on that, on Fable, looking amazing, and the progress is really well. We have seen now this news item come out about Eidos Montreal working on Fable. Fable seems to be in the heads of the executives at Xbox. Matt Booty, Phil Spencer, and Major Nelson all talk about this game. And next month, in 5 weeks or so, we get the Game Awards, and Microsoft has announced a lot of great games lately at the Game Awards. We've seen Hellblade, we've seen Perfect Dark revealed there, and others bigger games. Do you guys think this is a possibility? We might see Fable revealed now at the Game Awards?
Ooh. You want to tackle that first, Dutch? Or?
I don't want to get my hopes up. sitting here with a Fable Series S, thinking, hoping.
I know you're a big fan.
Yeah. I truly hope, and to be honest, you know what it is. It's, as Mav mentioned before, both Xbox and PlayStation have those studios you can rely on quality. Playground games are one of those, so no doubt whatever they put out is going to visually specifically look outstanding. Performance-wise, it's going to be optimized like no other game you've ever played. The way they've got Forza, I mean, have you seen some of the things that people are getting on the 4090 card on Forza? running 8K with ray tracing at 75 frames on extreme settings on PC.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most optimized game I've ever seen. So in terms of its performance and its graphical quality, I have absolutely no doubt Playground Games are going to smash it out the park. But I am glad to see the studio heads there are pushing back on the executives and saying, no, I don't want to show it yet. Nope. When I think it's ready, then I'll let you guys show it. But we don't think we want to show it yet. So I'm happy they're doing that as much as I want to see it, because I want to see it in its best light. And I want it because it's one of them historic series that unfortunately was left in the lurch for quite a long time. So
way too long.
As much as I hope that we do see something from it at the Game Awards, I still think the studio might push back and think it's too early.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I here's the thing. They have like 40 plus projects in development, right? So it's hard to pick exactly what they could showcase, but we do know one thing. They have utilized the Game Awards the last few years as a major showcase place where they've had they've even revealed the console there. You know, they've had Hellblade trailers there. They've had
Perfect Dark was there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So based on the history of kind of what they've been doing there, I feel like they showed Hellblade there twice now, right? They had the they had the longer gameplay segment, then they also had the original trailer that there at the Game Awards. So maybe it's time to see Perfect Dark again, right?
Yeah,
and that would be one that I would think could potentially be there. Maybe Avowed as well could be there. I feel like Fable, they are not ready to show yet. I feel like they could potentially get something to show, but I still feel like that game may be. I hope I'm wrong, but maybe not till 2025, right? And if I feel like they're going to try and showcase maybe what could be potentially a 2024 lineup, and I don't know if Perfect Dark fits that mold at all. But based on the fact that they showed Hellblade twice at the Game Awards, I would think maybe they're trying to use that same audience to grow hype over specific titles. Maybe Perfect Dark would be the next one that they could showcase as well, because they've already been there once. So maybe Perfect Dark, maybe Avowed, and maybe one other thing. I bet I would say 2 is a safe bet for them for kind of bigger games, and then they'll also have some of the other stuff that they do. So it'll be interesting. I'm really excited to see the Game Awards because they've used it as a place to showcase things that are further out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we last time we got Kojima's podcast reveal, so I think this time we're going to get he's starting a band. So
well, what about Kojima's game?
Yes, he's got several.
Didn't stuff just leak in a Discord or something like that about his new about that other
Overdose,
one?
Xbox One.
I don't know if that's the Xbox one or what. I forget the name of it, the code name.
Overdose.
Overdose, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that not the Xbox one?
I'm sure that's meant to be the Xbox title.
Yeah, so if that well, there's been a lot of stuff leak about that game. So clearly there's some kind of reason behind it. Maybe that's something they would showcase there. And it would also fit in with Keighley also, right? I mean, Kojima's always involved somewhat, like even if Keighley just mentions his name for no reason at the show. So we'll see, man. I hope Xbox brings it, because the E3 showcase this year, even though it was awesome, it was a great showcase. You know, it didn't give us that glimpse beyond this next 12 months.
Yeah.
But then the other aspect
into
of
the future,
if they did say early 2023 for a lot of these titles, right? So they got to have opportunities to announce release dates at some point, and they usually isn't big gaming showcases early in the years.
Yeah.
You know. So if maybe they use that as the reason to announce,
that is also something. Yeah, that is something I was expecting, actually.
Hellblade 2 release date. Hellblade 2 release date.
That would be sick. 2024 or late 2023.
Late 23. Late 23. Holiday 23 release date. I'll take that.
Man, if Hellblade 2 came out holiday 2023, and then you add Forza, Starfield, Redfall to that list, as well as anything else potentially that they would have. Age of Empires,
maybe Avowed
on console as well.
Yeah,
no, dude,
Stalker 2.
You're talking about one of the best first party Forza Motorsports. You're talking about one of the best first party years like ever in gaming at that point, right? On top of all the third party stuff coming out next year. That just begs the question: are they going to just hold off on their a holiday title for the following year? Now, I don't know, man, because they already got enough. They got enough. Like 3 big games is pretty good. But
the only reason I'm hoping the Hellblade was exactly what you said. They've showed it, or they've used that as a showpiece place for the Game Awards. So why not just give them the final piece of the puzzle? And
that would make a lot of sense too. It popped in my head, but I honestly don't want that because I've seen enough of it at this point.
Yeah.
Even if
we got the glimpse and that, and then you see more of it. At E3, they just do the reveal like of the release date and a tiny glimpse of some other kind of combat, but not really go in depth, and then use that to
whatever we see from them will be meant to wow us.
Yeah,
because when they're going to the Game Awards stage, they're bringing the hype titles, right? Because it's an audience that has a lot of people that like Nintendo or like PlayStation or just play on PC as well. So you're inviting people to the ecosystem that aren't necessarily there already. When somebody watches an Xbox E3 show, right? It's like people that love Xbox or that are already liking Xbox.
Yeah, so you're already invested in the brand or in the ecosystem. Yeah.
Of course, a lot of other people pay attention and it makes news and stuff like that as well. And people grade it and all these kind of things, but I feel like people that had no interest in Xbox previously do not care about Xbox E3 show whatsoever. Xbox is like last on their list of things to think about. That's a stage where you can bring excitement and new people to your ecosystem, is by showcasing something that you can only get in the Xbox ecosystem at that stage.
That is
so
true.
Whatever they showcase, I think it has that wow factor, which I feel like they've seen it working before with the other things they've had at the Game Awards. And that's one of the reasons they chose to actually showcase the Series X there as well when they announced it. So I'm excited for it. That's why we all watch the show, right?
Absolutely. We're not watching it for the actual awards. We all watch it for the trailers and announcements.
Yeah, I think with the scores that God of War Ragnarok is going to give Elden Ring a run for its money, or you think Elden Ring still got it solidified?
That's a very good question. I haven't played God of War, so I can't really judge how good it actually is. But I think if there's a runner up for Elden Ring, it's gonna be God of War. So yeah. It'll be a battle between the two.
I was going to say it depends on how they view or how they look at it. Do they look at it on what changed the medium? In which case, then Elden Ring wins hands down, because you've went from having a space that is unbelievably niche to having 20 million players playing a Souls game. Like, and then you've got God of War, which is undoubtedly a masterpiece, judging by the critical reviews. But it is a masterpiece following up an equally good masterpiece, so it's more of the same. So as much as it's a great game, did it do enough for the medium that is gaming to push that thing that would be classed as a game of the year? I think if it stands on the merit of what pushed gaming forward and what brought new people into new things, then Elden Ring should win on that basis, but it depends on how they look at it.
Watch Pentiment get a 99 on Metacritic and sweep the whole thing.
God, imagine.
That's also next week, right? Pentiment.
It is. And Monkey Island. Woohoo!
Yeah, coming to Game Pass. Exciting, man. Finally, this year
it reminded me of the Octopath Traveler moment where they just dropped the news that it was coming to Xbox on Game Pass. It was like, what? And then just to see Monkey, because that was only announced for PC and Switch, and then just went, and it's out on Xbox Game Pass. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
It is absolutely. So we're worried, actually. We came from Fable to Game Awards to... I love that about our show. We always start with one topic and end with another one. Actually, we wanted to talk about the Phil Spencer interview, gentlemen. He has, and I've seen a lot of people discuss this on Twitter. So I definitely want to bring it up here as well, because he has said something And when being asked about the future of Xbox, of course, he first said, by the way, that he is aware that they didn't really release enough first-party games for far too long. That's the phrasing he used. Basically admitting that, COVID is an excuse, but still he gets why people are disappointed. First party release, but 23, and we already discussed this, is gonna look a lot better. I get why people are tired of these apologies, and we hear the feedback, and still it's a wait and see game. But yeah, 23 really, as of right now, looks like an insane year. What I really wanted to discuss with you, gentlemen, is the future of Xbox in 23 and beyond. Looks awesome. And he also mentioned that they are already thinking about new hardware. So I want to know from you, what do you think he meant by that? I mean, there are different options. New hardware could be like an Elite 3 controller, which I would love to see. But of course, AMD had their RDNA 3 event right now in parallel. I'm going to rewatch that later after the show. So yeah, the mid-gen refresh consoles is another possibility. So what do you guys think did Phil Spencer mean by the team is looking into thinking about new hardware and looking into it? Math, but let's hear your thoughts here.
I think that, like, he was asked about this right before this console generation launched, and I think it was on an interview like with Brian McCaffrey or something like that. I can't remember, but he was asked about this because there was question at that time, like, will this be the last generation, right? Or will there be more Xboxes? Will there be more things? And at the time, he was like, well, our hardware team isn't going anywhere, right? They've got to work on something, you know? So we know that they've had iterations of Project Keystone, which Jess Corden had found out about way a long time ago. But since then, now we know that it's been put on the back burner because they had decided to go the different direction with the deals with like Samsung and stuff like that. So new hardware for the consoles. I've been on. I mean, you go back and listen, like some of our first shows. I've been saying for a long time that I feel like this generation is different in the fact that it's just like when you say like generations of gaming, I feel like this is just the ecosystem is just a continuation of itself now, right? It's no longer like we're going to, hey, move on from this thing to this whole new thing, right? I think we're beyond that. And I feel like the jump from Xbox One to Xbox Series X kind of cemented that, right? Your whole ecosystem carried along with you for the ride. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this generation, when you think about generational leaps, it's more about incremental leaps now. Because if you went from a 1X to Series X, you know, resolution wasn't the biggest difference. It's now about frame rates and it's about the SSD and also you have your AMD RDNA stuff and all that kind of stuff everybody talks about, right? So when I look at what would be a reason for Xbox to have a new console out there, it would just be to have another option, right? So Xbox in the hardware space is just the console is just one place to access the ecosystem. It's no longer, you don't even need an Xbox to play Xbox, right? You can play on PC, you can play on mobile, you can play on an app on your TV, you can play however you want to. And they're adding more and more places to play and making it easier and easier to access. So at some point, the console becomes not a requirement, but an option, right? Now, it's still the best place for many of us, and including me. And I think and Xbox is well aware of that. So when you look at it as like, why would they release a new piece of hardware? It's because the technology has gotten to a point to where people can take advantage of it. And if you're asking me, if I was to go to the store in 2024, right, and go pick up a brand new Xbox, right, this one is capable of more than this one is. I'm going to choose the one that's more capable because I'm an enthusiast, right? So if the technology and the pricing is able to stay about the same, but you all of a sudden have a better option, why not just go ahead and put that out there? If it can run games potentially better, you can update games to run on it better. At that point, the only detriment is to the developers who have to optimize for another device, right?
Yeah.
So I don't feel like there's never like a reason not to do it, because console gaming is going to get to the point where now it's just like, hey, get whichever device you want to play on, and then access the ecosystem. It's much kind of like more like phones are, and kind of like
Yeah.
PC is now today. Um, so that at that point, I feel like yes, because we're past that point of it being like just like, hey, buy a box and it's going to last you 8 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're not. That's not the way it is anymore. You know, like, I'm glad, because guess what? Towards year 6, 7, you know, or whatever, this thing started feeling pretty stale, and you're ready for something new. So what if every 3 or 4 years you all of a sudden were able to get something that is able to play your games at either higher frame rates or took advantage of more things like a PC does, right? People
Yeah.
make those leaps on PC graphics cards all the time. Nobody complains about it. Oh my God, you got to optimize for more graphics cards now? You got more options, but they still
Yeah.
support the older ones. So why does console gaming have to be any different? For me, if I'm paying $500 at a store for a device, I want the latest and greatest technology that you can possibly put in there. And when you think 2 years from now, there'll be the 5000 series, right, out there. At that point,
Yes.
these consoles are going to start feeling a little bit dated more than they do right now. Obviously, right now we're talking about they're not taking full advantage of all the technology in the boxes. They still got so much room and so much headspace to do. So why would they feel the need? It's not about need.
No.
They don't
Yeah.
need to do it. It's just about why not, if the technology is there and they're just trying to bring as much value to the consumer and keep ahead in the power narrative as the most powerful place to play
Yeah.
on console. That's the only reason I think that could be. And
I have a lot to say about this as well, but I definitely want to to hear Dutch's thoughts first. The enhanced consoles. You think Phil was teasing those?
Oh, absolutely. He said, and I just go back to the start of this generation, and when he was talking about Series X and Series S and how they came to be, and how they plan for these things, and these consoles are planned literally a decade in advance. Essentially, they need to plan things forward, including advanced consoles and enhanced consoles. And the One X was a bit different because that was to improve upon the Xbox One as a stopgap between the Series X and the Series S, which they had already began planning at the essentially just after the launch of the Xbox One. So they'd already started on the thought process of what do we need in the next Xbox after Xbox One. The One X was essentially the bridge between those generations. So they'll not only just have these next kind of step One X's, i.e. the enhanced version of the series consoles, but they'll already be planning for the next set of hardware beyond that as well. They'll be asking people, what do you need? What is required? And doing their testing. It'll be early days. For the enhanced console, it'll be very much what the One X was.
you think there'll be a disc in it, and this for the next Series X level?
Yes. Yeah,
so?
I think
Yeah.
they're going, because again, if you have even though we know that the trend of digital now, and it's getting more and more digital only, there's still no, as it stands, there is still a market for that. For the enhanced console, I would say yes, absolutely. There's going to be a disc for the next generation of consoles, though. That's up in the air. I think that could be when the push for all digital is a potential.
What year is that going to be? You think we're going to? Because
Oh,
people
God,
said this is going to be the longest generation ever,
it is,
right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's only been extended because of COVID.
yeah.
I think if it wasn't for COVID, I think the generation might have been a year or so shorter. But I think it's
2029,
probably
2020, 2030,
probably
something like
28, 29 by the time we get the next generation, I would think.
I mean, 28 would be like more or less the regular cycle every 7 to 8 years.
Well, that's how long the
what it's
360
been.
generation lasted. I think the
Yeah,
but
8
Xbox
years.
One generation was what, like 6 years or so?
7
7
years.
Yeah, wow.
7 years, and
Man,
360
that was
was
a long
8 years.
generation for those consoles. That's
And
just
but that was
Yeah.
also
I think
extended.
the different.
Extended
Yeah,
further
please.
by the release of the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X.
Yeah, they were able
whereas
to get 2 more
previous
years out of it.
generations, we had iterations of the previous model, but not really much. We had slims.
Slims, yeah, the slim versions.
We just had a slimline version, which it helped the generation, but it wasn't like a performance boost, as it were. It was just, here's some more storage space, and it's a bit slimmer.
So what if what if every 4 years they released like a new iteration of the hardware?
That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
every 8 years there's a bigger leap. You know what I mean?
It could be that they end up going down, and this is where, because consoles are getting more PC-like, it could be that they end up going down the modular route. So they have a GPU that is more than capable to last a decade, for instance, like a really strong GPU with lots of VRAM built into it specifically, like on the board, but then have modular memory and modular SSD, as you already have now to an extent, but have that extended further so that these consoles can really stretch out further. And essentially all you would need to do is go and say, right, okay, well, the games are evolving. I do need a little bit more power here to run the graphical mode on this and not the performance mode. So I need to get a little bit more. So I think it could end up going down the modular route.
I feel like at that point too, like the cloud technology will be so far more advanced than it is now that all the Series S's that are sold out there, if they don't want to keep supporting it on the biggest AAA games, that they might feel like it could be like shortcoming with the amount of memory, that maybe those become cloud gaming devices for the big AAA games, right? Which you wouldn't necessarily even notice a difference, you know?
I'm not even sure if we will see like a full proper new generation. I feel like we will just get like these enhanced consoles every 4 years, and eventually they're gonna drop the mandatory support of one of the older consoles. So like
that's what they do on mobile, right? For phones and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because like all these games are now being developed for PC anyway. So the question really is, when won't the games be able to run on the Series S and X? And that's when minimum specs of PC games have caught up with the specs of what is in the Series S and X right now. So once we get to that point, they're just gonna drop the mandatory support of the Series S and X. But I'm not sure if they will announce like the full proper new generation, this and that. It's just gonna be like every 4 years an enhanced console. So I have no doubt that we will see an enhanced console in 24 or 25. There's really
only for the cloud bases as well for Mav. I think the only thing stopping cloud reaching as many people as it could is the rollout of data to the amount of people that you want to use it. And by that I mean the ISP services, because of course the major restriction there is, as much as 5G is growing, it's still not completely rolled out to its best.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking, you know, like what I say, like 8 years from now, or like it would be even beyond then, because I feel like if you look at 10 years ago, right, where the cloud was, with 2012, I mean, we were just it had just came out, and we were just using it only for cloud saves.
Yeah. 8 to 10 years is so much in this technology space. When you think about where we will be, and not just with the cloud technology and Wi-Fi and mobile reception and everything, but also our hardware here is already today. We have RDNA 3 was announced. Yeah, we will get Zen 4 CPUs, and the consoles we have Zen 2 CPUs.
I think for me, the rollouts of these updates are quicker than they've ever been, but I feel like the jumps in capabilities are smaller than they've ever been.
It's true.
That is my only withdrawal with the technology that we've got these days.
The thing is, you don't get the same jump like we had when we went from the SNES to the N64.
Like you say, in 2 decades, we've went from the Sega Mega Drive to the Series X.
And graphically, I think we're at a happy place. You know what I mean? Like I don't really need to be like, wow, I want to see the next amazing thing of graphics. I mean, we see that all the time. It's like, holy crap! Like, look at Hellblade 2. You know, look at games like Plague Tale Requiem. Look at God of War Ragnarok coming out, or all these games. Like, graphics have reached a place where I think majority of people are plenty happy. Obviously, there's always room to be even better, but like for me, it's about how the games feel, and that's where the technology, performance-wise, is really needs to be pushed, and that's why I don't like when these developers make the decisions all based on fidelity, because like these slight differences for all of us with some of the fidelity options, especially like action-based games, we're not really going to necessarily nitpick it apart or notice it, but what we do notice is like the overall like feel of a game and how it's presented to us in that kind of way. You know,
I would honestly, I would even go a step further here. For me, it's not just about graphics. I love technology. Everyone knows that. I love graphics. I love frames. I do think these kind of things are important. But what I want to see, truly see, is that they use the computational power we have now in the consoles to enhance the actual gameplay. What I mean by that is I want an improvement of the AI. I want an improvement of physics and simulations. Make the worlds feel more lived in. Make the densities in cities tighter. Make physics simulation more accurate.
A lot of stuff they're doing with that, Boxburger, is actually they're doing a lot of that with the cloud tech also, right? We've saw 2K talk about that a few years back, actually, where they talked about the next thing in cloud gaming and machine learning and all this stuff was actually they're going to be using it for the AI in their games with real traffic decisions and all these kind of things.
And that's exactly what Flight Sim brought in, of course, because you've got real world weather, you've got real world air traffic, like everything's cloud based. To be fair, it needs to be, because when you obviously if you get into those stages where you want everything essentially real time and you want the AI to behave that way, and you want real weather and things like that are based on actual weather patterns and the way it forms and things, that is, in terms of actual storage capabilities, is well beyond what we could put into a console, as we know from just the Flight Sim alone. 5 petabytes just to get the weather and traffic,
which is insane if you think about this, right? Let me briefly read a super chat. Shout out to Herto Kvin, he should get a timeout for this super chat, but he just wants me to read it on the air, and he knows how it's going to be hard for me, but I feel obliged to do it, so I'm going to read his super chat. Pineapple pizza for the win. No, definitely not.
Garbage pizza. No.
Yeah,
thank you.
Pineapple.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. See, Mav, that's why we love having you here on this show. So where were we? Next gen consoles, gentlemen. There's so much potential to discuss, but we are almost 2.5 hours into the show.
Boom.
And I said in the beginning to Mav that we should usually don't go over 2.5 hours. So we really have to briefly move over to the community questions, because I want to at least ask 1 or 2 of them before we let everyone out of here. So that's why it's time to talk about the community questions.
Ooh, you're so good. Every day I hear the words from you.
All right. That's the new jingle for the community questions. And like, it
I like that, man. It's like, I got me in a groove. I was I know you couldn't see. I was grooving and dancing to that one, man. I was loving it.
Want to hear it again? One more time?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Ooh, you're so good. Every day I hear the words from you.
That's great.
That's cool. I'm glad you like it. The community questions, you guys know the drill. Each and every Wednesday, you can send in community questions via Twitter, via YouTube, via Xbox, via PlayStation, doesn't matter. The questions came in this week from a lot of people. We have plenty of questions, and we're almost out of time. So I want to concentrate on a couple of them, and the rest we will answer next week, Dutch. I think because I definitely would want to say thanks to everyone who sends in the questions and provides us with topics. Dave Ramos who was on the community special podcast, by the way, sends in a great question. And by the way, there will be another community podcast on December 1st. But we will talk about that a little later this month. And yeah, Dave Ramos sends in a question that asks, a good portion of games get pushed back and delayed. We know this. What games currently slated for 23 do you think are most likely to get delayed to 24?
Ooh, that's a question just like asking for anger.
So
Spider-Man.
let me go first. If you guys want to think about this for a second, because I had a little head start to think about this. Spider-Man 2 is an obvious candidate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be obviously surprised if Stalker 2 wouldn't hit the release window.
I think they've been pretty adamant that it's coming out 23. Someone started a rumor about that, and they were like, "Absolutely not. Nope, 23."
Yeah, 23 is what they planned, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had to move it up because things are still not really improving in the Ukraine. It's just what it is. I think Forza Motorsport, honestly, everything we hear about this game, like it starts to get into the polish phase in January, is what they said lately. I'm not sure if that's gonna hit 23. So what do you guys think? Which games might get moved?
I think Forza's good. I have a feeling.
Yeah.
That,
Forza's going to be good.
But I agree. Though
I'm not saying it's not going to be good. I'm just
no. I'm with Dutch. That's going to be a 2023 game.
Yep. Yeah. But I do agree with Spider-Man. I know that is the only one physically slated from a first party. Actually, yes, it is from a first party perspective. The only one slated for Sony next year. However, there's always a potential that could move out. We haven't heard anything about it. We literally haven't seen the game yet, so we don't know anything about it. If it's going to be an actual leap from the previous one, regardless of how good it looks so far, it doesn't mean that, again, from a narrative point of view, from the story that they've finished writing the story for the second one, as well as even if the gameplay is looking good and the graphics are looking cool, the story might not be there yet, but outside of that, of course, yes, they've still got Forspoken, etc., and that one's destined to hit. But I've got a feeling Sony could have an issue with Spider-Man, but we'll see. I hope they don't, because that's all they've got so far. But that's the only one I can think of logically.
What about the Justice League game?
I was going to say maybe it's Avatar as well. Is Avatar not already been pushed back till 24?
Yeah, it was supposed to come out this year, actually. So it has already been pushed.
Yeah, I think that could potentially also be pushed back further. But we shall see. It depends, because Ubisoft on their new games haven't had the greatest of track records. Look at Skull and Bones, for instance.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Skull and Bones is going to get infinitely delayed again, and indefinitely delayed again.
Based on previews that I know people have been playing, that game could probably do with getting put back again. So
to come back as a free-to-play iteration.
I think it would need to at this point.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, I'll add a couple.
Okay.
I think I mean, just like that game's been delayed so many times and rebooted so many times. Why not another, right? So then I'll throw in there. I was just looking at one. I was looking at the release list. I think Forza is gonna hit. Spider-Man, I feel like is pretty safe. The developers just came out and said that they're on track for 2023 still. So with that being said, who knows exactly? But I want to say Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, that's
because
a good shout.
Final
That's
Fantasy
a good shout, yeah.
games always get delayed again.
Well, I was going to say, Mav, not only that, but they're planning on Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Part 2.
Yeah.
And Forspoken. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think Forspoken hits obviously next year, but I think Final Fantasy 16 could. I mean, I'm not saying it is, but I think it could.
If it's not that, then Final Fantasy 7 Part 2, because as soon as they announced it was releasing in fall 23, I thought, don't be silly.
Yeah.
No,
and then one more would be Diablo.
Yeah.
Oh no, Diablo's gonna hit. They have done all these betas, and we hear a lot of good things. The game's apparently already in a very polished state. And
good, I'll take it off my list. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't think Diablo is gonna get delayed.
Hope not. I'm itching for that. Will
me too.
ABK deal be done before Diablo 4 comes out?
That's a good question. I mean, they said Diablo's gonna come out. Yeah, they said Diablo's gonna come out in the first half of the year because it was included in the 12-month window at the Xbox showcase. So,
was Forza Boxenberger, and you're calling for Forza.
That's true. That is true. But yeah, I just have a feeling that Forza, I don't know. It's not that I'm hoping that it's get delayed, but
yeah.
You know something. One of these games is gonna get delayed. Maybe not to 24, but at least in the second half of the year. I think also Starfield is a good candidate.
I was going to say, for me, from a delay perspective, I think it's more than likely that it's going to be third party than first. I think the first party stuff, specifically Starfield, like that was pretty much ready this year, and they made the decision to just have that extra time to polish it. So I think that is fine. Redfall, we've seen yet another trailer the other day, and that looks even better than it did when we seen it at E3. So that's no issues there.
No. Redfall, it looks really far along in development. I have no doubt.
What if Xbox's whole first party lineup got delayed to 2020?
All of it. Just have another 2022 again.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I a couple of months ago, I went back and watched all our prediction videos that we all did, and the prediction shows at the beginning of the year, and we all said this is gonna be a massive year for Xbox, best year they've ever had, and it was supposed to be that. They said very strongly, we will bring out Stalker, we will bring out Starfield, Redfall, Forza. All that stuff. We all assumed this is gonna be a massive year for Xbox, and see what it's turned out to be.
And now even Atomic Heart just got the February date, right, as well, right?
Yeah.
So that even missed this year. So
that missed this year. So there's always the chance, like we will see another major pushback. I don't think it's gonna be as bad as this year. No. So some of these games definitely will hit next year. But I think we should also be prepared for other delays and games to move out.
I'll tell you this, Foxburg. If half of the games that are announced for 2023 come out, we're all in very good shape because
absolutely,
it's insane. There's too much. I mean, it's absolutely astronomical.
I was going to say from the message that I think everybody can see anyway, if you're following ACG, was he said there's a few that he's been told about that are going to be delayed. So there is obviously going to be moves, but I think that's more of a logistical thing than a development thing. We know how busy the beginning of that year is. Like February, March, April is just rammed with games. And if you want your game to have somewhat of a successful launch, you need to get out of that. You do need to move. So
it's like 12 months of first party and third party AAA releases all crammed to 2 months.
It's heavy.
And it's really just heavy if you look at the first party content, or let's say day one Game Pass content, but on top of that, all the third party releases like Hogwarts and all these major AAA releases coming in the first half. It's insane. It's insane. Let's answer another community question. Lazy Couch Gamer writes in and says, Hey, David Jeffy said that the cutscenes of Gears 5 and The Last of Us 2 are worlds apart. I agree that there is a difference, but I wouldn't go that far. I also think that in-game, especially the DLC of Gears, is as good looking as basically anything. Do you guys agree, or am I wearing fanboy glasses?
They're two completely different engines. Obviously, one's is Naughty Dog's not using Unreal, are they? They're not.
No. They have their
No.
proprietary engine,
Proprietary
the Naughty
engine,
Dog
yeah.
engine. Yeah.
So it's again Gears 5 was on at that point the best version of Unreal 4, which was as good as that could be. Of course, especially The Last of Us 2, that's on its proprietary, somewhat enhanced engine over what was. And we've seen what the likes of Asobo can do with their own proprietary engine,
Yeah.
and that looks phenomenal. Two very different styles, though. Very different styles. Like The Last of Us, for instance, is it's meant to be ultra realism. Essentially, it's meant to be real looking characters with real looking worlds, mirroring real looking places. Whereas Gears is very, I would say, in a way, high fantasy. It's this other version of an Earth.
It's more stylized
yeah.
art style. Like the characters obviously look unnatural, like and everything.
Ultra, like
Still,
ultra jacked all the time,
I've
but
seen that podcast. I think it was either it was on Colts or RDX where he said that. And honestly, I think I disagree here because like Gears is probably the worst example. You could take a lot of other Xbox. You could take Halo Infinite, for instance. I would absolutely agree there.
yeah.
But I think that the thing about Gears really is that this is, yes, it's mainly a multiplayer game. But this is the one multiplayer game that always had like the same attention to their single player, the quality of the narrative, of the campaign, the story, the world building, the character building is just amazing. And so yeah, I would disagree here. Like you said, Dutch, it's different art styles. But in terms of quality in writing and production value or quality, I think there's really not many games on the same level as Gears. Last of Us being one of them, of course, but worlds apart, in my opinion, not.
Yeah, I think because Cliffy B mentioned it as well on a podcast the other day as well, when talking about the history of the Gears franchise and after it got purchased, and there's a good little section that actually praising Phil Spencer for being the only one that told him about the purchase when it completed of the franchise, and kind of ringing him and being cordial about it, and but outside of that, he mentioned, of course, the only thing narratively he thinks Gears have done is box themselves in after 5 because, of course, making that decision on who lives and dies. He thinks, from a narrative perspective, they kind of were a bit short there. And I think that's one thing, potentially, that Naughty Dog have over the current Gears. Is I think narratively, of course, I do think Naughty Dog have done a better job, specifically over Gears 4 and Gears 5. But in terms of a graphical perspective, which is I think what he was talking about, especially the cutscenes and things, yeah, I disagree on the quality of the art style and graphics. I think the very two different styles, but in terms of the actual quality, they're both fantastic. I don't think you could tear them apart.
Yeah, I agree. Mav, last community question of the day goes to you, and then I'll let you out. Tyler Bars writes in, would you like to see Microsoft as a platform holder increase support for mods on consoles?
Yes, and I think they've actually already said that they want to as well. Something that Bethesda pushes a lot as well. They kind of were some of the first to do that with Skyrim on console, and they said that they want to support that with their games going forward as well. So it's something I think would be really interesting. The catch is you got to be a little careful with it because a console is more of like a closed ecosystem type device, and you're opening things up to like security potential issues and stuff like that. If you allow certain things in, or maybe the boxes aren't capable of running certain things that you could potentially on a PC, right? So They have to do it in a little bit of a different way, right? I think that what they're doing now is they're kind of going through and seeing what would work, and then allowing those mods to go through, which was working pretty well. And they need to, I think, open that up across. But then you also have like there's licensing issues and copyright issues and all these other things that could be potentially come up. So it's definitely a new trend that's starting, and they're pushing that forward. I think it's something I would love to see. I mean, my dream would be to like get one of these games and have the replayability be infinitely enhanced based on the community mods just being available.
Yeah.
And all these crazy things. Like you see the Spider-Man mods on PC, right? When you see like crazy stuff going on and different characters and all these different things. It'd be insanely amazing to be able to do stuff like that. So I think we're going to see it keep being promoted and enhanced, and different mods be put on console now more than in the past. But it's up to the developers, I think, to really make it a focal point on console, because on console, a lot of people treat console, like a lot of developers, as like second class citizens almost, like in a way. Like
Yeah.
PC gets all these options and all these modes and stuff, and even if the console's capable, it's like they don't think the console gamers care, so they don't give it to us, right? So I feel like certain developers need are and publishers are aware that console gamers want this stuff. Todd Howard and Bethesda, like I said, is at the forefront of that. So once people start talking about it and using things more, I think more developers will kind of latch onto that and start giving us more options. There's other aspects too, like in-game built-in tools, right? Like Forge and Halo. They're going
Yeah.
way above and beyond with Forge this year, and with what they're doing in this Halo Infinite. So I feel like tools like that are really cool to give to console players. I go back to playing Far Cry Instincts on the original Xbox that had a really powerful map editor. We were able to make our own modes, our own maps, and all this stuff. And then it's like a lot of that push that happened in way back then kind of started disappearing, you know? And
Yeah.
Halo was the only one that really kept doing in Forge, but they had still didn't capture it as much as some other games in the past had, with the amount of customizations and abilities that we had on some of those earlier map editors. So I feel like it's up to the devs to put the tools in the players' hands and build a game that we can really create our own experiences. And Starfield could be Starfield could be that game that really launches that,
Yeah.
because there with 1,000
I mean-
planets out there and all this stuff, you can imagine the possibility.
Yeah. The Bethesda games are built on the creation engine, and the
Exactly.
creation engine is named the creation engine because
Yeah.
of its famous mod support. So yeah, I agree there. I think with Starfield we will see definitely an increased amount of mods on consoles. Anything you want to add before we let everyone out of here?
Oh, I think the only thing I've seen recently on that as well is I think they're planning on very soon. I don't think it's too far away. I think they're planning on adding mod support for Fallout 4 on consoles and PC soon, or consoles at
Oh.
least. So that's going to get a new
Sweet.
lease of life, and I think they're going to do some kind of enhancement of Fallout 4 as well for consoles.
Yes, they have said that they will bring the 60 FPS
Yeah,
to it. Yeah.
which is great. So yeah, you're going to get mod support. I think not long after that for Fallout 4 as well. So that's going to bring a whole new lease of life to that game. So absolutely, mods are amazing. Again, much like kind of Mav mentioned there with the games that already have it, and of course Bethesda being the kind of kings of that. And what they've done, and you have to look at specifically the Skyrim on PC with not just kind of regular mods, the like full blown expansions to the story that people have created for that game, and like entire new sections of the map that were never there that have been created by the community, like whole new essentially DLC by the community that doesn't exist anywhere else. Like if you could get that type of stuff coming onto console that's community created and is as high quality, if not higher quality, than what the first party team have managed to put out themselves, which in a lot of the cases, the modern community on Bethesda has been that way, then absolutely we want to see more of that. It's been the same with Flight Sim. The modern community on there is essentially why that game is so popular for simmers, because the vast majority of the content on Flight Simulator is the community. All of the planes, essentially, there's only so many planes that Flight Sim have to create because they've got die-hard, like hardcore modders that create these, like put thousands of hours into creating new planes and new airports and locations. And so yeah, absolutely, I want to see every game get mod support, if possible, on console going forward. I think it would be the best thing going forward. But it would be a curated list, as Mav points out, because you can't have everything that PC has, because PC's a wild west of mods. It's literally everything goes, and it's not really moderated that much. And
I mean,
a lot
that's
of
the
stuff,
entire idea of a console, right? To have like that protected ecosystem, like,
Yeah.
and
they don't want to allow something that's going to break your console.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
like it's got
exactly.
to make sure it's going to be okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I want to close the show with the last super chat that came in from Dave Ramos. He sends in a $2 super chat. Thank you, man, for the support. And he says, "You guys are still live, a bunch of champs, I say." Yeah, man. Today we went a little longer, but that's just what happens when you have these fantastic conversations. And so I want to say a big thank you to everyone who stayed with us for 2 hours and 46 minutes as of right now. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies, of course, as well. I want to say a big thank you, of course, to all the super chats and the channel members for the support. Truly means a lot. But also a big thank you to Mav for joining us here today. Man, let everyone know where they can find you and what you've coming up.
Yeah, you guys can actually check me out in an hour, a little over an hour, PM in the PMs tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern over on Fun Speculation. Pong Soul and I are going to have a great discussion. Lot to talk about right now with gaming. One of the best times of year for gaming as well, right? So we'll have awesome discussions. So check that out. Tomorrow night, we got Xbox Ultimate Podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have a lot of fun on that show. We go left, we go crazy on that show. Sometimes it gets a little nonsensical, but that's what it's all about, having fun talking about games. And then Mondays, we got Fun Speculation Podcast at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And that's where we look ahead at the games coming out for the week. We also have some non-console specific discussions. We'll go around, look at things across all platforms and have some fun discussions as well. Besides that, you guys can always check me out playing games over on Fun Speculation on YouTube. I've been streaming some Modern Warfare last night. I'll be playing more this week, lots more streams and little YouTube shorts and videos occasionally when I have time to put out some of that kind of content as well. It was a great time, guys. Thanks for having me again, Boxenberger and Dutch.
Thanks for joining.
Great show. I love what you're doing and what you're building here with your podcast, as well as your amazing videos from the gaming enthusiasts from Germany.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. And if you guys want to find Mav, if you don't follow him already, just click in the description of the YouTube video here of this podcast, and you will find all his links. So yeah, Mav, thanks again for coming on. Dutch, thank you for being here as every week. So let people know what you've coming up.
Yes, of course. I'll be back again. So a few technical issues yesterday. Was meant to be doing a laptop upgrade. Unfortunately, the upgrade did not work. So that was a bit of a setback. Also, news was relatively light yesterday, but today we've got a flurry of news. So we'll be back again on the weekend for the weekend edition, and of course back again next week for the podcast as usual. So yeah, that's what I've got coming up. But Mav, great podcasting with you again as usual. Need to get you back on the show again at some point as well.
Yeah,
even if
sure,
it's
man,
on,
you too.
Even on the weekend edition, to have a little bit more of a chilled show where we talk about more pop culture stuff that I know you and Mav like, you and Pong like doing as well on PM in the PM, which is kind of a mixture. I know you used to have fun pop. Are you still bringing that back, or you put that on hiatus?
I want to. I got to figure out a way to do it. You know what I mean? It's like my heart's there. The ability is lacking to be able to make time and put the effort forth on that show. And also YouTube kind of screws us with some of this stuff, you know, on putting a Marvel and DC centric show on a highly Xbox and gaming centric channel. So I got to figure out some of the intricacies with that stuff. But Yeah, I love Fun Pop. I would love to bring it back if I can.
Some awesome stuff.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap this up. Thanks again to everyone who showed up here today, who listened after the fact, who stayed with us for almost 3 hours now. Super appreciated. We will be back next week. If all works out, we'll have an awesome guest there as well. But he has yet to confirm, so we shall see. But we will be back anyways, Dutch and I. So thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to game on.